Territory known as the William Treaty First Nations, which includes Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Boswell, and Georgina First Nations. And we thank these nations for their care and stewardship as they pass through these lands. Okay, could we have a resolution to adopt the agenda?
Be it resolved that the agenda of the regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Dysart et al. Held on April 23rd, 2024 be approved as presented.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Barry, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Being none, we'll have a resolution to adopt the minutes.
Be it resolved the council approves the April 9th, 2024 special council meeting minutes as circulated.
Okay, mover and seconder. Walt and Carm, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay. Anything to report from the county? I see we have Scott here today who will bring us up to date, I'm sure. General delegations. Mr. Oval, how are you? Okay, Scott, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Worship and members of council. I'm Scott Oval, Director of Economic Development and Tourism with the County of Halberton. I was here in the fall virtually with Director Steve Stone at the time to just give this council an update on the short-term rental program, which has obviously progressed, and then just provide a brief overview of the municipal accommodation tax and the concept of that. If I could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the municipal accommodation tax regulation was introduced in the fall of 2017. Prior to that date, municipal accommodation tax or tourism taxes existed in municipalities, but were predominantly done through hotel associations and were voluntarily created. This regulation, essentially what it did was provided some parameters on that, just because there were some issues. I don't know if you remember that far back, but basically Niagara Falls, there were hotels that were collecting the tax and not actually remitting it to the organization they were supposed to, and were essentially pocketing it. So at that time, mayors around the province as well were lobbying the government to provide them revenue generation opportunities beyond just your standard tax base or the levy or grants, which are really our primary revenue generation tools. The focus of it really was to provide a focus on tourism, economic development, and your softer services. When we do get into difficult budget times, discussions around those divisions become a little bit more challenging. So it was really, the goal was to provide revenue opportunities in that space to help augment the expenses related to them. The legislation can only be implemented by lower tier municipalities. So for the purposes of today's conversation, the county itself just couldn't enact a municipal accommodation tax across the entire county. Each individual township has that authority, and that's where it lies. It is a mandatory tax. So prior to the legislation being created in 2017, you could ask for the charge to be removed from your bill. If it's passed, it actually can't be removed. It has to remain on there. It's enacted by law. Just some notes there, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but it just does provide you the authority to obviously state the subject of the tax, what it's to be opposed at, who's to collect it on your behalf, whether that you have a third party entity do that, which some municipalities do, or you do that in-house, who you're authorizing to collect it, etc. It also does provide the powers for exemptions, penalties, audit, and inspection. Important to note on the exemption side of things as well, we have seen jurisdictions where they've actually exempted a particular property. So there's an example, actually, we saw in Muskoka through some research where there was a longstanding property. Basically, it was an older cottage resort, lobbied the council, and they were actually exempt from the program. So that as an example of that does exist out there. Next slide, please. So beyond that overview, there are some mandatory requirements that are actually defined within the regulation, and they're pretty firm. So at least 50% of the revenue collected must be redirected to a not-for-profit agency or another body. And it has to be defined as an eligible tourism entity. So that's basically an entity that focuses on tourism marketing or development or promotion. The other 50%, in this case, Dysart could retain that and do whatever they want with it. If you wanted to spend that money on your roads budget, you could absolutely do that. There are no restrictions on how you spend those funds or that revenue. And for an example today, as it's currently constructed, the county acts as the DMO for the entire region of Haliburton County, obviously. But we actually wouldn't be an eligible tourism entity. So that's why later in the slide, we'll touch on the creation of a municipal services corporation. As noted in the previous point, funds must be used exclusively for the purposes of promotion and development of tourism. Now, that's a really loose term when you're thinking about particularly Haliburton County, when tourism is such a key part of our economy. It's important to note in there as well, it's not defined in the regulation, but tourism infrastructure is another example of what that money could be used for. So parks and recreation, we've seen a lot of municipalities redirect funds towards those areas to support those kinds of initiatives. And the municipality and the eligible tourism entity that are entering into agreement that would be doing that 50-50 split, you do need to create some form of a transfer payment agreement or a service agreement, whatever language you want to put on that. And that's really just around respecting reasonable financial accounting matters. And the purpose of that is, although the revenue source is collected through a different avenue as your traditional tax levy, once it comes into Dysart in this example, it is public funds. So there's a requirement to be open and transparent about how that money's spent. And there are some key considerations, and we touched on this in the fall, is, what is that tax rate? 4% is what we've seen fairly consistent across the province. So I think right now I'm going to say is approximately 30 jurisdictions that have implemented the accommodation tax program. And I'll say probably 95 to 98% have done 4%, or when they passed the bylaw, there was a structure set up that they were going to get to 4% after a couple years. You are my third delegation that I've completed in the other townships. Did pass motions that they were in agreement on that. Who is the eligible tourism entity? So where is that money going beyond just strictly Dysart? What are the contents of that service agreement? You can, and we've seen the examples of it. It's beyond just here's when you report to council. It's really around what do we want that money that we're giving that entity to be spent on. Obviously, it has to be focused on tourism, economic development, promotion. But if there are things that maybe you have identified in a strategic plan, you do have the ability to say, we'd really like it to go here or into this given area. So there's also those opportunities. And then lastly, use of funds at the local level. I'm not here to tell you how to spend that money if you do pass the bylaw. We have seen in some instances where they've created policies around the money where they've basically said, we're going to spend it in, these 3 or 4 certain areas. But we just had a recent conversation with Prince Edward County, and I thought they were a really good example of they were kind of facing some budget challenges. So they redirected a lot of their money, I believe, this year and into this year's budget into kind of the roads capital program to help support that. So that's an opportunity as well. Next slide, please. So, and just some overview on the bylaw that's been created. So just some quick notes, and I'm not going to go through this, line by line, but as it's structured right now, that the tax would be charged and collected by the host. So up until late 2018, Airbnb and VRBO were actually entering into agreements with municipalities where they would collect the tax on behalf of their hosts and remit it to the municipalities. As more jurisdictions started passing short-term rental bylaws, each one being slightly different. In my conversations with Airbnb at that time, basically they kind of put up their hands and said, until the province kind of tells us we have to do this, we're not going to do it. So what that requires is the host actually has to charge it. In this instance, they would remit it to the third-party monitoring agency, Granicus, that's also helping with the short-term rental program. The bylaws structured that they would do that once a quarter. That money then subsequently, either at the end of the quarter or the start of the quarter would subsequently be transferred back to Dysart. You'd be getting a check from them, and then however that transfer payment agreement worked out with that alternative entity, you'd work out when that money gets, a portion of that money gets transferred over. Really important just point here is the fees actually only applied to the purchase room rate. So if the room rate's $100, the 4% only applies to the $100. It doesn't apply if you're, charging for additional parking, cleaning, internet usage, etc. As noted before, it is a mandatory charge. Collectors of the tax, so in this case, the Corporation of Dysart, you would have the ability to audit and inspect the books of a host if you so choose, if you felt that the revenue or what they were remitting wasn't lining up or things weren't adding up, and Granicus maybe would notify you of that they're seeing some discrepancies. What we've noted as well is we would want to see probably, or we'd recommend that the implementation date would coincide with the enforcement date of your short-term rental program. So they basically would go live at the same time. And then language in the bylaws, it's currently structured, and just kind of a really, probably one of the bigger points is any booking made prior to the implementation date of the MAP bylaw wouldn't be subject to that charge. So an example of this would be, and I'm just using an arbitrary dates right here, but say the MAP bylaw went into effect October 1st. Any booking made prior to that date, the host wouldn't have to charge that fee. So even if the booking was made prior to, or was made prior to October 1st and they were coming in 2025, they wouldn't be subject to that fee. And that does impact, as we note later in the presentation, just what you're going to see from a revenue standpoint and the rollout of this, and probably taking your time and trying to determine the effectiveness of it. And then lastly, we just have our tourism staff's just working right now just to create a dedicated web page that we'd either host on our Wade in Haliburton site or on the county site that we could redirect people to, just on an FAQ slide. So just really frequently asked questions. I do have a report going to County Council tomorrow just on an update of the short-term rental program. And in that, we have an example of what an FAQ page would look like as to what would the frequently asked questions, just so we can deal with any inquiries we do get. Next slide, please. So a lot of numbers on this slide, and really what we have here is just on the projections slide is just a couple notes, because I have been directed by the Ministry of Tourism by this. So they do contract out a company called Lighthouse that they monitor and collect short-term rental data on their behalf. So they have agreements with Airbnb and VRBO. Where you'll see the discrepancy just on the average number of hosts is they're not going to have agreements with your local cottage rental agencies. So when we presented in the fall, we provided some numbers, and there was some comments made that they didn't, some people disagreed that they weren't accurate, and we understand that, and really what this is right now is a snapshot of the data that they've given us. What we were able to do is the previous data we got, they would only give us occupancy rates, but it was really hard for us to determine if it was an occupancy rate over 365 days a year, or it was an occupancy rate over when a host had their property available for rent. So that made it really hard to tabulate data. Since that time, Lighthouse is actually able to give us the data set for the County of Haliburton specifically. So they do have a public-facing website on the Ministry of Tourism that gives basically the short-term rental data for the RTO that we're part of. They were able to pull it and drill down deeper to give us this information specifically to the County of Haliburton. And where we were able to kind of, we feel, get a more accurate estimation was it gave us the number of reserve nights in a given year. And then basically what we did is took the average daily rate. So every month they gave us a data set that showed us what the average daily rate was in that month. So we just averaged that by 12 or divided that by 12 to give us our ADR over a year. And that's where we were able to kind of build out those projections, and what you're seeing kind of in bold down there is possibly what could be generated. I'd really stress that that's based on 100% remittance. And just given experience with short-term rental programs and speaking with other jurisdictions, like 100% remittance is going to be really challenging to reach. We're, you know, really probably you're looking at 70 to 80% would probably be the goal. You'd be doing really well compared to a lot of other places where they're only seeing maybe 40 or 50%. It is important to note though, really what I look at this is a really positive news story. Just strictly if I look at it just from an economic development and tourism perspective, there's a lot of people coming to the county that are spending a lot of money. We do see that, and data shows us that someone that is staying in a short-term rental traditionally stays a bit longer in the jurisdiction they're in, and spends a bit more money as well. So, and then just what we've learned in the first quarter of 2024 through the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario. They have indicated that within the first quarter of 2024, they've seen across the province a bit of a dip in STR activity. Right now, the consensus on that is we've seen a huge spike in supply, basically from, 2018 to now. So you're going to see a bit of a dip in demand. You also see a dip in average daily rental rates. And then lastly, what we've seen basically, particularly between 2022 and 2023, and I think probably it's trending into 2024, is last year was basically the first year where people had a full year to almost plan a vacation where there weren't any restrictions placed on travel. So people were able to travel more abroad. They were able to travel other parts of the province without any restrictions or feeling your arrive can-app or things of that nature. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. Next slide, please. And then what we just have is just what we'll chat with you today just about the next step. So what we've recommended and is to pass the municipal accommodation tax bylaw at 4%. Just to have a motion to direct the non-municipally retained funds to a municipal services corporation that would be created by the county. The county does just need to create a business case for that corporation, which we're going to do in-house as well. And it notes public consultation, but it's a public survey related to the creation of the municipal services corporation. So it's not a public survey related to the accommodation tax bylaw itself. Those two items there are basically outlined in the regulations around creating municipal services corporation. You have to do those two steps before you can incorporate. We would recommend drafting a service agreement between the corporation and all the townships. The goal would be to have that as similar as possible. But as I noted earlier in the presentation, if there are items that you as a council feel really strongly about or want to see investment in, obviously open to discussion about those things. And then we've noted it's most likely 12 to 18 months from the effective date to really kind of gather a proper understanding of the revenue generated through it. But it could be anywhere from 12 to 24 to 30 months really before you're really going to get a solid understanding, recognizing and I fully understand it that when this is implemented there will be people that'll try and get around it and not charge it, or they'll load up bookings into 2025, and that's their right, and they can do that as they wish. With that, that's the end of the delegation, and happy to field any questions you may have.
You've done a lot of work on this and I sincerely appreciate it. And I supported it at the start, but I'm starting to think now, I think STRs are about 50% from what I can find out, what they were 2 years ago in our municipality. So our revenue is going to be way down. And then of course we had the federal budget, which everybody's struggling to get ahead of the capital gains tax. I just don't know how much tax we pile on people here. So what if we said, that we were gonna tax at 2% instead of 4%.
Through your worship, that's your right as
That's
a
your
council.
prerogative?
Yeah, I have no authority to tell you that you can or
No.
can't do that. It's the rate that it's to be imposed
Yeah,
is at
if-
your discretion.
Okay. And I guess the other question was, we get what's our share of the renters. We don't get it based on 4 municipalities being divided equal.
Yeah, through your worship, and I'm sorry if I don't think I touched on that, but it would be the revenue you collect is based on the number of hosts that are within your jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So you're not sharing revenue on the money you retain with anybody else.
Okay, so I can see this now. You said there's a bit of a loophole there. You could say you wanted 100 for parking, you wanted 500 for use of the shoreline and 300 for the use of the building. And who's going to argue that? And who's going to check it?
Through your worship, so in other jurisdictions, I did see an example of where someone, and I'm gonna say this is like 2019, where basically they listed their cottage on Kijiji, where to rent the stand-up paddleboard was $1,000 a night, and the cottage came for $5 or something like that. Basically, what happened was the municipality just stepped in and said, like, that we're not going to allow that. And it's either you operate by the rules and the faith of the bylaw, or we'll remove your license, is essentially what they did. And just on, I guess the monitoring side, right? Like that is I would say the benefit of Granicus is they have a lot of experience in the space and they're able to monitor that. I do have a request into the province to get some updated numbers, hopefully to the, I'm hoping they'll give us the end of the quarter. So we'll probably get those in early May, which will give us a better indication. You are correct in the statement about, activity going up and down. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. And that's why, anytime I've talked to any council about this, I said that's really important when you're doing the budgeting about, there have been examples where councils got a little bit aggressive with, we think we're going to get this. And this is even when they had hotels involved, which the collection, the remin's a lot simpler when you're dealing with, say, 12 corporations as opposed to 550 individuals.
Right. So we can target STRs and we don't have to target accommodations provided.
No, you could at a later date. If you wanted to go down that road. I think when I was given the initial direction by county council related to this file, it was really, we're going through the process of dealing with the STRs. So it just makes sense to go this way. When I've been involved in the file in the past, it was the other way around where you dealt with, it was implemented on the hotels.
Which we hardly have any of now.
Yeah. And then 18 months later, it was added on to, short-term rentals. And I think if I remember correctly, some language in the service agreement was amended to basically say that money that was specifically collected through short-term rentals was going to go more to affordable housing initiatives and things like that. So those are things to keep in mind, but.
Yeah, Murray, I'm on board with 2% for sure. I think everybody's discretionary income's slowly getting eroded, and we don't want to kill the entrepreneurial spirit of somebody making a dollar. Because I think all those dollars evolve, whether it's in community or construction projects or renovations or coming to town and buying stuff on the same note. But I'm fully on board with 2% on that note. I think that the main focus of this whole thing was to kind of correct or have a mechanism to control bad actors on the lake is where it started. And if we're turning it into a massive revenue generation process, it's great that we can put some of these funds towards community projects and everything like that, but I don't want to get too carried away where we kill the golden goose per se on that note. Scott, so if I'm clear, Dysart keeps 1% of the 2, if that's the way it goes.
Yes.
You get 1%, and Dysart is able to weigh in on where that 1% goes of our or of the collective between all the townships.
Yeah, through your worship, good question. So that's essentially why we've recommended it the way we have, is even on the Municipal Services Corporation. What we've initially recommended is that board be composed of representatives from county council. So really, you're having a say in kind of how both pots of money get spent. And then specifically when it comes to the transfer payment agreement or service agreement, as I said, ideally, just for reporting purposes, it's easier for us if it's consistent, but we're not here to make things easy for other people. It's about, doing it right. So yeah, if you had an infrastructure project in a park or something like that, we can definitely put language in that agreement that basically says discussions related to joint projects. And I would probably just say we would want to be somewhat specific, maybe related to joint projects related to, you know, culture, recreation, the arts, things like that. And then that leaves the door open for conversations at a later date if cost sharing can take place. I know, I think it was Algonquin Highlands, they had a question about boat launches. And whether you could, you know, use some of it, like the 50% you don't retain for boat launches. And that would be a stretch when you're talking about kind of the development and promotion of tourism. But as I said, it's a really broad term. And I think they've done that intentionally from a provincial standpoint. So you're going to have input on how both pots of money get spent. Obviously, the pot that you don't retain, there is going to be components of it that are trying to go to just the greater good of the counties as we spend our money now. But if you've got, as I said, things in a, you know, strategic plan or an action plan of a committee of council, yeah, those are conversations we can have.
Did the other two townships pass it at 4%? Or can you say that?
Yeah, it was through your worship. It was obviously public meeting. So I don't know if the bylaw was specifically passed at that meeting, but it was the motion was made to make it at 4%.
Okay.
But again, it's a bylaw, so you can go back and amend that almost at any time. I want to say it was Niagara on the Lake or Niagara Falls. One of them passed the bylaw where I think it started at 2% and then it went to 3% after. It's, yeah, again, I know it's a tax. It's the language around that regulation, so it's not popular. What I've tried to say in conversations with members of the public and council is that it's a tax it's not on the host. It's a flow through that is ultimately going to the guest. It's very similar to what hotels would do is when I've seen it implemented in the past, the rates just went up 4%. And
Yeah,
that's how they
that's
dealt
right.
with it. And it wasn't, so apologies. And so it wasn't something that was coming out of their pocket. It was basically, you know, if they charged $100 for the room, let's say on September 30th, on October 1st, it was 104. We haven't seen a lot of literature out there to say that this has a dramatically negative effect on how, you know, where people choose to travel. I think some of the data we see from the province, right, like with just the increase in the ADR between 2019 and now, it's, you know, you're at about, I think, 40% and people were still coming. But again, that's at your discretion.
Because you can leave Ontario now and you can travel.
Yeah. And in the past, when I was part of a program related to this, I did see the books from the hotels on what they would remit to the jurisdiction I worked for. And in my 18 months doing that, we never really saw, but I would say a significant or even kind of noticeable dip. They just they moved on.
Right.
I think at the time, my business card was on the counter of every hotel. And I might have got 2 phone calls from people that were upset about it, but.
That's pretty good. I get that every day.
Sure you do.
I'm sure. Anyway, I want to thank you for the work you've done on this. I don't want to discourage you because you're not going to get as much money for tourism maybe as you would. But we dare to be different in Dysart sometimes. Tammy?
I have a quick question about the HST. So all of the STRs have to pay HST, right? And it just says here on the Tourism Industry Association that the HST applies to the all-in price of transient accommodation, including the accommodation tax. So is that tax being taxed on, like they have to pay double, right?
Through your worship. So yeah, that is if the host is it's a tax on a tax. That is the host. That is if the host is charging HST. You know, as I think HST structure right now, if you're making below or generating below $30,000, you're not required to charge it or remit it. So and I'm not aware of any legislation out there right now that says it's mandatory for a short-term rental host to charge it. Again, that's on their discretion and basically up to them and probably their accountant as to how they want to handle that.
Hopefully they won't have to pay tax on that. We pay enough tax.
And just one other question. Do you know where the Ministry of Tourism gets those numbers for Haliburton County?
Through your worship. So I definitely inquired that because I knew it was going to be a question I was going to get asked a lot. So how it was explained to me was they have agreements with other entities. So when I drilled a bit deeper on that, it was basically they've got agreements with Airbnb and VRBO to share that information. Again, they're not sharing the private information of like where a host's located. They're just saying based on our platform in this jurisdiction, here's how much activity we see. As I said, it's through Lighthouse, and I know there's probably no perfect mechanism to actually collect and tabulate that. It's such a fluid space in the sharing economy that, as I've said, I just try to be as honest. This is a snapshot and the best data that we can get from the province that they obtain.
Thanks.
Any other questions, for Scott? Well, thank you, sir. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you tomorrow. Thanks again. Okay, resolution then, I suppose, Mallory.
Yeah, sure. I just want to warn council and staff and anyone watching the live stream that the internet is unstable in the municipal office right now. So if we cut off, IT's looking into it, basically. Just wanted to give that warning. So I'll read the resolution here. Be it resolved that council receives a delegation as presented by Scott Oval, Director of Economic Development and Tourism for the County of Haliburton pertaining to municipal accommodation tax. And further that the council for the municipality of Dysart et al. Endorses the following items. 1, the municipal accommodation tax bylaw is approved at 2%. 2, the implementation of the MAT bylaw will coincide with the effective date of the short-term rental bylaw. 3, the non-municipal retained funds, being 50%, will be directed to a municipal services corporation that will be created by the County of Haliburton. 4, a service agreement between the Municipal Services Corporation and the local municipalities will be drafted by the County of Haliburton to ensure consistency across all municipalities. And 5, Granicus will be the collection and remittance agent for the municipal accommodation tax. And further that bylaw 2024-44, being a bylaw to impose a municipal accommodation tax, as amended to reflect a tax of 2%, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
That's passing it, isn't it? 2%. Yeah, we're passing it at 2%. Are we comfortable with that, or you wanted to discuss it more? Good. Everybody okay? Okay, mover and seconder then. Pardon?
Isn't this the first time it's been presented? Like she said, it was 3 times. But this is.
Oh, that's just how we read our bylaws, Tammy.
For a second.
Yeah,
The reading.
because we're passing the bylaw today.
You got concerns? You don't know, okay. Okay, so now we need a resolution then.
Did we get a mover and seconder for that one, or
Yeah.
can you repeat it? I can't hear it.
Barry and Walt,
Barry and Walt, perfect, thank you.
okay, all in favor? Carried. Do you want to vote nay? Yeah, Tammy wants to vote no, nay. Okay, Mr. Blake. First of all, Jim, that's a very informative document you've given us. I think the biggest issue is the trees, by the look of it. That's one of the big issues, and the resulting work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
On the trees. So if you could focus on that, it would really be helpful.
Okay. As Murray stated, it's a large document. Represents about 5 years of work. We started in 2019 in preparation for the ending of the first plan, which was ending 2021. Of course, COVID got in the way of that. The process that we went through was to access the resources of Fleming College, the Natural Resources Program. And we worked with one of their professors and teams of students who did some background research, set up the framework for that. And then the Glebe Park Committee has worked on that and fleshed it out. We got a fabulous report from previous curator of the museum, Stephen Hill, on the history of the land, which was incredibly informative, going back to our earliest records, and also Dennis McGee, who is a member of the Glebe Park and Museum Committee and is a retired professional forester. Did all the work on the forestry part of things. As you know, an enormous amount has happened since we did the first stewardship plan in 2010. It feels like a completely different park now. The introduction of the mountain bike trails, the expansion of snowshoe trails to cover the entire park. We moved trails which had been built years and years ago, which sort of slipped over into private land. All those trails are now on public land, except for the one access route across, which we have a land use agreement for as that. Obviously, the granting of the additional lands to the college for the building of the residences. And if you've been by there recently, we have 2 complete buildings there. I mean, obviously, there's lots of work to done, but it's like, wow, wow, wow. So that's fantastic. And a whole bunch of other work that's been done in terms of landscaping and trail development, et cetera. The trails in the park are now used as walking trails as well as skiing trails and biking trails. So we have an enormous amount of action in the forest in relationship to those things. Also, since 2010, when we first did the first stewardship plan, we've had the introduction of the beech bark disease. So the beech trees are all either dying or dead or endangered. We've had a proliferation of the deer population, which has had a dramatic impact on the ecology of the forest. And also some extreme weather events, which have caused a number of things in the park that we've had to deal with over the years. So it made sense for us to obviously renew the plan. So there were a number of features to be considered in terms of uses of the park, and also what's happening with the forest. So the major thing in terms of the forest, what's being proposed and how we've been operating for since the initial stewardship plan was first in place, is it's being managed as unmanaged forest, which sounds like a oxymoron, but if you read the research, it's not unmanaged. So we have 3 stewardship values. So the recreational and cultural value, and the ecological integrity of the forest, and safety, obviously, for the people who are there. So for recreational and cultural use, we have tens of kilometers of trails in the park, whether they're ski trails, walking trails, mountain bike trails, or snowshoe trails. And obviously, that has an impact on the park and on the forest. And it also has an impact in relationship to safety. So that whole corridor beside all those trails the forest has to be managed for safety purposes. And so that's, you can see attached to this document is the whole hazard tree policy, which has been developed. So we realized last year, I mean, when we came in with the first stewardship plan, there was a forestry plan attached to that. And because nothing had been done for a long time, and all the danger trees were taken out. And so the danger trees didn't really become an issue until, just recently, because the forest changes over time. So we did an entire review of the forest, identified all the hazard trees, and developed an ongoing policy, because obviously the danger trees, as well as causing a safety concern, also create a liability concern for the municipality. So we want to make sure that there is a plan in place, that it's being implemented and followed through, and that's happening. So that's all in the plan, and the addendum to the plan is the hazard trees policy. There are a number of things that we're dealing with right now in the forest, which is the beech trees. Any of you who are doing anything to do with forestry or cutting down trees know how dangerous the beech trees it can be in terms of taking them down. So that's all being taken care of. And also the recommendation is once they are taken down, that they're left down, that the wood is not taken out of the forest, because that just transfers the disease to somewhere else. Even though it looks like very desirable firewood, we don't want to be taking it out of the forest. So that's a key thing. The park is incredibly popular for dog walking, and with the introduction of a dog waste receptacle, we've seen a lot of improvement in terms of people actually using that. The recommendation was we might want to look at a second one, just the amount of people we have walking their dogs. And you think it's like, okay, so the dogs can just go in the forest, but actually that dog excrement has an impact on the environment of the forest if just let be, and also brings other things into the forest which would naturally be there. We also have seen a real change in the forest in relationship to the number of deer that are there. We're thinking of calling it glebe and Glebe Park and Deer Reserve. And we've seen a dramatic, as you can see the report in there, a dramatic effect in terms of basically eating all the small saplings of maple trees, of eating the eastern hemlock. So we've actually seen in the last 2 years a incredibly healthy eastern hemlock all over the place, which is the low-lying hemlock, to it almost being eradicated from the forest. So obviously things are happening from an environmental perspective. And so we want to make sure that we're monitoring what's going on, and have proposed the creation of permanent sample plots in the forest, which is really just pinpointing a section, and it's gone and reviewed on a regular basis to see what's happening on the forest, and scientifically we can find out what is going on there. And then obviously the whole hazard tree process. There's a procedure to review the forest every year, to identify new hazard trees, and to put recommendations in terms of whether they need to be trimmed or whether they need to be felled. And part of the ecological health of the forest, we're really feeling like we're at a capacity for trails in the forest, certainly the double track trails, because as soon as you start segmenting the forest, that has an impact on the wildlife and a variety of different things like that. So we have a incredible network of double track trails now. We don't need any more. And we may put in some other single track trails, but especially with snowshoeing, those have little to no impact on the environment, because people are walking on the snow. And then, in the summertime, people aren't walking on those snowshoe trails. And as you can see, we've developed a whole comprehensive set of maps of the forest for biking trails, for hiking trails, for snowshoeing trails, and ski trails, and the snowmobile trail that goes through the forest. So that's a very quick summary of the 55 pages, and I'm open to any questions. And Dennis McGee said his regrets that he couldn't attend today, but he's out of the county.
So those are danger trees then, so that we're gonna have to have an arbiter or somebody follow them that's qualified. I guess.
Yeah, so right now, Dennis, who's a retired
Yeah.
registered forester and sits on our committee, has volunteered to do this for us. So there's no cost to us for that of the basically monitoring the forest. And he lives right beside the forest and goes there every day. So he's got a, incredible eye
yeah.
on the forest. You could see if you read through the report, it's in an unbelievable detail.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
So he looks after the management, but who's taking the trees down?
So we had a whole set of trees taken down last year. And sorry, I'm not going to be able to remember the name. They're an organization that's they're a member of the Nordic Ski folks. They did it for a very, very reasonable price.
Okay.
We've also, because the Nordic Trail folks are maintaining their trails,
Right.
and they have the liability insurance, so their volunteers are taking down the ones that are just easy, they're ones that you can push over or, easy to take down. But anything that's obviously, has a higher risk, we're bringing in professional foresters, but it's at a
Very low
a
level.
very reasonable cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
And I know anybody's had a tree removed from their backyard and brought in, it's like, I know you're counting those dollars, Murray, and,
I'm always counting the dollars.
yes,
That's the
and-
next question I got for you.
yeah, okay.
I saw in there where you're talking about a pavilion and some, I don't know, so two other things, garbage containers. Like
Yes.
where on the trail, because somebody's got to pick them up, and if our parks
Yeah.
crew go out there and have to do it, it's going to cost. So I need to know, we need to know that. stuff.
Yeah, so the only thing that I believe that it's mentioning is potentially another dog waste container, but
Okay,
it wouldn't be anywhere, it would be still close by.
okay,
So for example, the one right now is on the trail that goes between the museum and the college, that main trail. And we may have put one at the entrance to the sculpture forest
Okay.
where there's already a garbage can.
yeah, okay.
But it seems to be if you put the dog waste container
use
there,
it.
then people actually put their dog waste into that, which is also better for the staff in terms of trying to pull out a very large, just regular
Yeah.
I don't want to go into the details.
No, that's not.
Yeah. But we understand the implications for municipal staff, and it would be very close by to the other
Okay,
one.
that's the right
Yeah,
answer.
yeah.
Pat, do you have a question?
Jim, how many acres is that?
The park? Well, including the college land, it's 175 acres.
Wow.
The college land is approximately 25 acres. I'm off by a few decimals.
Alrighty. All right, so we're just talking about dead danger trees or liability on the corridor, or we're talking about the whole forest management plan where you're knocking trees down and you could leave the dead trees, I would imagine, up in areas that aren't an area of concern for people
Exactly.
walking, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So any place that does not have trails going through it, and I can't remember the distance exactly, but
Sure.
there's a recommended distance from the trail because the tree obviously
Yeah.
doesn't tell you which way it's going to fall. And so it's only managing the corridors in relationship to the trails.
Very good.
Any part of the forest that doesn't have trails in it, we'll just let it
Sure.
take care of itself.
Okay, thanks.
The other recommendation in terms of the forest, originally the forest would have had a white pine, would have had all the white pines. And then the maples growing under the white pines. And so there's recommendations where we can is to, like, obviously at some point, all the white pines were taken out.
Right.
So there's recommendation, so where we can, and it makes sense, to do some replanting of white
Good.
pines,
Yeah.
just from a long-term
Good.
basis.
Well, that's a good plan.
Yeah.
Anything else for Jim?
No, I don't think so. I sit on the committee with, and I do remember coming back to me all the time, Jim, about the price of the tree removal. And I remember being shocked at the time, thinking that I can't believe they did it for this amount of money. So anyway, just a little heads up with the next 32 trees or whatever I got to come out of there, which may only end up being 10 or 15 that they have to look after, that we don't look after
That's right.
ourselves, right? So.
And we have identified that money in the budget for, so we'll just make sure that we've got a chunk of money. We put a fair bit of money into trails over the years, and now they're more at a sort of maintaining basis as opposed to, putting in new culverts and everything. Pretty well,
Pretty good shape. I
the
believe.
major work is done, so we can be dedicating that more money to the management of the forest.
That's everything. Thank you, Jim. Again, thank
Okay.
you. That's very detailed.
Well, and thanks to all the committee members who put in an
We
arm's
put
length
it
of
all,
work
everything together.
for this.
Good. That's great. Okay, Mallory.
Resolution?
Yep.
Okay. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the briefing from Jim Blake on behalf of the Glebe Park and Museum Committee detailing the proposed 2023 to 2033 Glebe Park Stewardship Plan, and further that council adopts the 2023 to 2033 Glebe Park Stewardship Plan as presented.
Okay, mover and seconder. Barry and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thanks. I think you should take a rest after all this.
Hey, there's no rest for the wicked, as they say. Okay, next we have Lands of Norris, Part Lot 8 concession. And I guess Jeff's here for that.
Yes, thank you, and good morning. So this report relates to a potential road closing application, which would include the conveyance of a portion of road allowance in exchange for the municipality receiving a turning circle at the end of True North Road. The lands proposed for this exchange are shown on a site plan attached to the agenda, so if you want a visual, I would have a look there. Based on the history of similar approvals in the past, and the direction provided by the municipality's official plan, staff do support and recommend approval of this request, and also that the administration fees and land costs for this application be waived. Lauren Arsenault of Morgan Planning, who is the agent for the applicant, is also in attendance today if council has any questions for us.
I think this makes sense, quite frankly. Is there any questions for Lauren? Okay. Do you have anything to add, Lauren?
Morning, council members, through your worship. Thank you for the opportunity to address this application. I'll just be quick. My name is Lauren Arsenault and I'm a planner with Morgan Planning, and we're representing the property owners of 1341 True North Road in support of lot boundary adjustment with an abutting parcel to the west. So these parcels, both the severed and benefiting parcels, are located at the end of True North Road. And as a condition of the consent, staff requested that a turning circle be conveyed to the municipality to provide more room for plows or service vehicles to turn around. So since our clients were looking to purchase a portion of the road allowance to align with the new property boundary, Morgan Planning and Development suggested a land swap. And so this is sort of how this has come before you this morning. So we're just requesting that council, that we obtain approval, from council before we move forward with the consent application. So you'll likely see me back next month before you with those consent applications. And you may remember that we originally had those consent applications on the agenda in January, but we asked those to be deferred so that we could work with our clients and staff to negotiate this proposal. So we are of the opinion that this represents good land use planning, and we request that council pass the resolution per staff's recommendation. And I'd like to thank staff for working with us to get this through. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Okay, is there any questions about this one? Okay, resolution then. All right.
Be it resolved that council approves for processing a request by Norris to exchange a portion of the road allowance for Cowling Drive, True North Road, Plan 447 for a turning circle for True North Road, adjacent to their property in Part Lot 6, Concession 10, in the geographic township of Dudley. Council agrees to waive the application fees and land costs for the application. Each party will be responsible to pay for their own legal fees. These lands are declared surplus.
Mover and seconder. Nancy, and Carm, all in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Council.
Okay. Proposed telecommunication card. Jeff, you're still on.
Yes, thank you. So this is a proposed telecommunication tower or a 90-meter tower on Sumcott Road in Harcourt Park. As required by federal regulations, Rogers has undertaken a public consultation process. A letter of support was received from Harcourt Park yesterday and added to your agenda. Harcourt Park internally consulted with their entire membership and note that the tower was overwhelmingly supported by the voting members. They note that this tower will vastly improve safety and service for their members and appreciate Dysart's leadership in delivering this important basic infrastructure to connect our rural communities. No other comments were received. Rogers is now requesting a formal statement of concurrence from Council. And Victoria McKay is in attendance should Council have any questions about this proposal.
No, except that's a first to get recommendation for sure. Okay, any discussion? Okay, resolution, Mallory.
Be resolved that council concurs with the proposed 90-meter guide telecommunication tower in part lot 6, concession 7, site C8603 in the geographic township of Harcourt. The existing vegetation buffer shall be maintained around the proposed tower. The tower access road is to be designed and screened with vegetation to minimize the visual impact of the tower by immediate neighbors. Lighting shall be the minimum required to meet safety standards, and shielding shall be installed to deflect the light from being directed toward the ground.
Sorry, I didn't call on you, Victoria, but I didn't think we needed you when this was so clear cut, but. Anyway.
That's okay. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If no questions, that's fine. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, mover and seconder. Walt and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, fire, Dan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody see me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. Just a quick update on our fire calls and stuff. As if you've been looking over our numbers there, you'll see that we actually had, there was 10 fires that are listed on ours. I just want to be clear that they were not highly eventful fires. We had a couple of structures that were involved in fires but were contained. 2 fires that were actually an assistance to Minden Hills as mutual aid calls. So even though the numbers look like it's high, it actually wasn't significant damage or anything like that done for anything through the municipality. We see that our medical calls have come back into our regular approximately 40% calls from the last couple of months, even though they had actually dropped significantly for 2023 for some reason. I'm afraid I don't have an explanation for that. But just see, and you can see that our consistent numbers are still increasing as from year to year. So we're up to over 100 calls versus 93 last year. Sorry, any questions on anything that you've written that?
No, I think it's pretty clear.
Okay.
Anything else, Dan, from you, or any questions from council?
I'd just like to thank council again. Specifically, I had to walk away from my camera last month, so I want to thank council for going ahead and passing the new updated open air burning bylaw, which now puts us in alignment with the other 3 municipalities around us here. So it's making it.
You didn't have the benefit of the snowmobile thing at Halliburton Forest, did you?
No, unfortunately, we did not this year. They had to cancel due to the poor weather. So yeah.
That was a big help to you.
I just want to report. Yes. Oh, it really is the association. Yeah, the association likes to purchase things that the municipality shouldn't really be required to purchase for us. So it's one of those things that it's those items that we want to have to make our jobs easier rather than things we need to have. So
yeah, well, that's good.
And we also put that into
next year we'll have snow and have 2 of them.
Yes. Yeah, we'll find a way to make up for that.
Yeah.
Also, in my report there, I just want to make sure everyone noticed that our compliance for the annual emergency our services of our annual requirements for exercise and training, and everything went through very well. And I think there was only maybe 7 or 8 municipalities that weren't able to comply. So it's really good to see that provincially people are taking a good interest in the future, what potential problems have and being prepared. So.
Okay, that's great. Okay. I guess, Mallory, we ready for a resolution?
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the fire department report for March 2024.
Mover and seconder? Tammy and Carm, all in favor? Carrie.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Andrea and Andrew. Andrea. Okay, Andrea,
Morning,
who's Mommy and Me?
Mommy and Me. So Olivia Fetter contacted me asking if they could book, if she could book the park for a Mommy and Me program weekly on Thursdays. It's a program called Little Movers. I did attach a link to the website if anyone was interested in seeing that. The program right now is based in the Barrie area, but she's looking to come to Haliburton and offer it here. So as you can see, I have 3 different resolutions. She would pay the $100 park use application fee. As far as I know, there is she wasn't 100% sure on the charge to the mothers, but she said the programs they run in Barrie are roughly around $150 per participant per session. So they do charge a fee for people to take part in these classes.
Are they non-for-profit or are they?
I don't know that information. I tried to get a little bit more information from her before I had the report written. She was going to contact her employer. Her employer was busy the day we were conversing, and she was going to get back to me, but I haven't received that updated information.
I think that's critical to know whether it's a business or whether it isn't.
Yeah, I just from looking at, I don't know if it's a not-for-profit. I would tend to lean that it's not, just looking at the website and just from the conversations I've had, but I don't know for sure that answer.
Okay, so that's why we need to look at that user fee thing in the park again.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff sorted out.
Yeah.
If it's a business, then they should pay something. Okay, Pat?
Oh, I just think it's a great idea. Utilize the van shelter a bit
Yeah.
more, and great for people to get out and.
Yeah, it is good
for
and
the
good
park.
for the kids too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how do we deal with this? Because we really can't pass it till we know that. I guess defer it. Is that what we're gonna do?
They need to know the plan.
Well, then they can confirm to Andrea, I guess, whether it's non-for-profit or profit. Like that's $600 a month. So. Not very much, but. So Andrea, if they confirm to you that it's not for profit, we go ahead.
Okay.
And if it is, then maybe you call a couple of us and see what we do.
Okay.
And we'll convey that to council. Okay?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
If it is for profit, maybe you just reach out to see what they can afford or what
Yeah.
make it work. So I don't
Yeah,
want
that's-
to kill that just out of.
Yeah.
I did ask them to provide examples because I asked if they've used other municipal parks like elsewhere, and she said yes, and she was waiting to get that information from her employer just to know what they've done elsewhere. I don't have the information to provide you right now.
Is the employer from Haliburton County or?
No, she's based in the Barrie area,
Okay.
but I think Olivia has ties to this area, hence wanting to bring the program here.
Okay. All right. Well, just a little more detail there.
Yes, yeah, I understand that.
So we'll defer it this month and then bring it back to May. Andrea, does that work? And then
Or I
But
think they're giving her
they-
authorization to move ahead if she can just clarify that piece.
so yeah, so we can approve the request to reserve the ban shell. But I guess we can just approve the request, but she might need to pay, so we'll make it, we'll note here in the minutes that if it's a for-profit, the payment might be required. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, no, I guess that'll work. And as Pat said, we'll see what they can do, yeah.
Andrea, what is the requirement if it is for profit? What would we charge them?
We don't have one right now. The only fee, like there was the $5 fee per vendor from the farmer's market that was passed 2 months ago or last month, but in the park use agreement, we just have a park, like an application fee. So for a new event versus a returning event and washroom fees.
But we also have a fee every time you use the park for $400 up front. We don't want to put them through that, so we'll have to figure this out. I think it's 400 or 500.
Yeah, that's a damage deposit.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've got a resolution I'll read here. Be it resolved, the council approves the request for Olivia Fetter to reserve the bandshell weekly from Thursday, May 30th to Thursday, August 30th from 11 to 2 p.m. for the Little Movers programming. A payment structure will be required if the organization is for profit.
Okay. And what day of the week is that?
It's a Thursday.
Thursday, okay. Okay, mover and seconder? Pat and Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Okay, next.
So I'll present the next report in Andrew's absence. So good morning.
You're presenting the next one, Barb?
Yeah, I'll be presenting the next one.
Good luck.
Thank you. Good morning. So we have here a staff report for the proposal to lease a utility vehicle for maintenance in the Head Lake Park and the Halliburton Village. So services provided by the Municipal Parks Department are required to be conducted remotely and within multiple areas of town. The Parks Department is challenged to move all of their staff around in the summer months. The department could benefit from the additional mobility to address timely service delivery with further efficiencies. The utility vehicle will be used in the spring, summer, and fall to perform light-duty tasks, such as carry staff to multiple locations within the village, change waste and recycling receptacles, so that would be in the park area and along the main road in the town of the village, service shelter and picnic areas, perform trail system inspections and servicing, watering the flowers in the village, and transporting staff site to site. So some other benefits for the utility vehicle would be less damage to the park, as it's a smaller vehicle than the 1-ton truck that is being used right now. So less stress on the turf and the irrigation system. It's also a safety thing. Maneuvering a larger vehicle through the park during busy times is a little bit challenging, whereas the utility vehicle would be a smaller footprint, be able to maintain the pathways and to get in some of the more tougher areas along the riverbed to do some brushing and maintain the garbage there as well. So the idea would be to lease this for a summer into the fall, try it out, see what the benefits are, and hopefully giving some consideration to a long-term solution in future budgets. So the lease of this vehicle will allow for more regular maintenance and staff presence in the downtown core as well, and as in the park areas. So at that point, it would also provide some additional staff presence in the area to help with potential vandalism. So I'd be happy to take any questions on the proposal.
Tell me how this would work. First of all, was it in the budget? I didn't see it in the budget.
Well, no, it's not in the budget. However, we do have some reserve money in our carry forward projects, and we're looking at $8,000 for the 4-month lease.
So tell me this, we've got an ATV going to pick up the garbage in Head Lake Park, right? So what do we put the garbage in?
So the garbage can be staged at the current storage facility in the park there. And then the staff then can come and pick up that garbage and take it to the landfill with the
I'm asking you, when they're
municipal
out in the
vehicle.
park, where do they put the garbage in the ATV?
Oh, there would be, there's a little box in the back of the ATV
Is
to
that a trailer?
transport that. Yeah.
Oh, the little box, so that'll.
Yeah,
never fall
yeah.
out garbage. I don't think we've made a case for this. First of all, we shouldn't be driving on the grass. There's a paved road around there, and what you do is you pick the garbage and you put it in the truck. Otherwise, we're going to be putting the garbage in the ATV, then we're going to come out and then we're going to load it in the truck to take it to the landfill. That to me is a complete waste of energy and time and money. I just don't think there's a case for this at this time. And if they can't water the plants on the main street, which we shouldn't be doing anyway, not really our role, it's usually out to private enterprise. The issue there is we just need to extend the bond. Like, I just don't know what the presence around town and this stuff about cutting brush on the side. I mean, hey, cut brush all the time without an ATV. So I'm sorry, but I think it's not in the budget. And if we want to come back next year and have a solid proposal on what exactly it's going to do, that's fine. But I'm not for spending $8,000 and just giving it to some rental place and when we don't really need it. So there, I've said my piece.
Barb, how many units does the Parks and Rec have now? Or is that maybe a question for Andrea or Rob?
How many
many
vehicles?
2 or 3, I think.
They have 2.
2.
Crew cabs, single cab, crew cab?
They do service a large area, though. Those vehicles can travel north up to Fort Irwin, so they do have quite an area to service. And that way, yeah.
All right, so what do they do now in the park? Do they just take the pickup and go around all those receptacles and put it in the truck and away they go?
Once a day, yeah.
Got it.
Half an hour.
Okay.
This would only be used for Head Lake Park then too. I mean, you're obviously not gonna transfer it, take it up to Halibut Lake or
They're not
Guilford or anything. We're just-
Hardcore.
Right.
Yeah, if I may, there's also some flexibility there. It would service Head Lake Park, Rotary Beach area, the downtown core. There's also maintenance that gets completed in Glebe Park. So there's mobility for that as well.
Well,
Yeah, I took a walk around the park the other day and asked some questions like where the farmers market is and where garbage cans, how many garbage cans are put out each day for the events. And it's roughly, I guess, determines the size of the event, but there's about 6 to 10 garbage cans. And to me, I just think I'm not saying it's a waste of money right now, but I think we need to find a better way to spend $8,000 and accomplish some more with the ATV, with maybe doing some like they were talking about, will it plow in the wintertime on the street, on the any sidewalks or things like this? I don't know.
no.
Won't. But I really think that it's not a very big area there to take the garbage, and you could even walk it to a certain area and put it in the truck. But to me, I'm not in favor of it either.
Okay.
What does plow the sidewalks?
We have a sidewalk plow with a sander on it.
Oh, so it can't be transferred.
No, yeah.
There was something said to me once that they would use it sometime in the
Yeah.
It's pretty light duty for a plow.
Yeah.
The side by
Very,
side.
yeah. And we were also looking at a new sidewalk.
Yeah, we are.
Plow and sander too, just lately, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last month.
Yeah, just to add to what I was talking about there a minute ago, like I think myself, we defer it to next year till we got more of a solid plan to put out, like, you know, outside of the efficiencies that you mentioned, Barb, there. Like, we gotta provide training and they gotta wear helmets and insurance and all this other stuff that may have to go along with it. So I think we just shelve it until next budget in next year and have a look at it.
There's an old saying, if somebody else has got it, it's like monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
So, we want to have the same as somebody else has. Tammy?
If we are looking at a different sidewalk plow,
Oh, yeah, we are.
then why can't we have a vehicle that does it all seasons, so it makes it more
Well,
worthwhile?
we could take the side plow and plow down there. I guess. I don't know why not with a trailer behind. No, I know they do, but I'm saying for the summer and pick the garbage up if that's such a big issue that we can't stay on the paved road. Anyway, I think we're ready for a resolution.
Okay, be resolved, the council denies the staff request to lease a utility vehicle for Head Lake Park and Halliburton Village maintenance.
Okay, mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Sorry, Barb, we'll try next year. Okay, building and bylaw, Carl, Bree, and Haley.
Good morning, council. So building permit report, it's first report on. Permit numbers are fairly similar to previous years, with exception to septic permits. As you see in March, we only issued one septic permit, which is very low. Now that number is expected to come up because we have issued about 80 permits orders so far for our last inspection area, septic maintenance inspection area, which was Halliburton Lake. So we're almost done Halliburton Lake, following up on the remedial action requirements. Anybody who hasn't fulfilled their remedial action requirements has received an order which will require some type of repair or upgrade, replacement of a septic system. So those numbers will come up.
Okay. And the building inspector report is right there. It's all the same. Okay, any questions on Carl's report? Okay, resolution, please.
Be it resolved, the council received the March 2024 building activity report as information.
Okay. Mover and seconder, Tammy and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Okay, bylaw appointment for septic inspectors.
Yeah. Hi, good morning, council. So this, part or number B there, is for the appointment bylaw for Aiden Hill, which is our, seasonal inspector that we've hired this year. Aiden is a returning staff to Dysart, but new to our program. He has worked in our parks department, prior to this, and he is in school right now for environmental engineering and such. So he's coming to us with a strong background, and we're keen to have him.
I think that's a good choice. I guess the resolution there.
Okay, be it resolved that bylaw 2024-32, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector of sewage systems under the Ontario Building Code Act for the municipality of Dysart et al. Sewage System Maintenance Inspection Program, Aiden Hill, be read a first, second, and third time, pass, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Mover and seconder. Barry and Tammy, all in favor? Sorry, Nancy, I didn't see it. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next.
So that's me again. So we are, the next one is an appointment bylaw for Jessica Hanna. Jess is a staff member who's been with our team for 3 years now. And we have just moved her up in the world to becoming a septic inspector. So her role will be largely administrative at this point in time. But as we continue to train her and grow her skills, she will be qualified as a full septic inspector full-time with the municipality.
Resolution then.
Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-33, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector of sewage systems on the under the Ontario Building Code Act for the municipality of Dysart et al., Jessica Hanna, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Okay, mover and seconder, Tammy and Nancy, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, the updated bylaw report.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yes, yep, so we have our updated bylaw report. As you can see there, the trend of increased incoming complaints is continuing. We are seeing every month about a double of our maximum complaint increase or complaint intake, so that's continuing. We're going to be issuing re-inspection fees starting in May as per the updated fees and charges bylaw from last month. So that will hopefully help us out with our ongoing zoning files because those are the big ones that we are having trouble getting contact with people.
No, that's always a problem. Okay. Resolution then?
Be it resolved, the council accepts the
Oh,
bylaw
sorry,
update
there was a
report
question.
from March.
Sorry, there
Oh,
was a
sorry.
Question.
Yeah,
Mark.
yeah.
Walt?
I'm sure there's some of us around here, but also around the council table. But also the public would like to know if we just give us the short version update on Wigamog. What's going on there, please?
Yeah, so the short version is essentially there is a species at risk assessment that's currently taking place. Our original estimate that we received is that it would take approximately 6 months. We did receive another update that it may be quicker, but it's unclear. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up saying that it's going to be faster, so stick with that 6-month estimate. But that is something that needs to take place before the demolition can continue.
Okay. Okay, now resolution.
Thank you.
Okay, be it resolved, the council accepts the bylaw update report from March 20th through to April 16th, 2024 as information.
Okay. Mover and seconder. Carm and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, application for relief under the sign bylaw.
So I'm just bringing back the application from last month for the A&W sign permit. We've updated, I've received an updated map, fully removing signs 15 and 16 from the application, just so that that's removed. I know there was some questions about the entrance permit. My understanding is there is an existing entrance permit from the neighboring property from that plaza. So we have, just on the first page of the attachment there is a little table that kind of explains what exemptions are required to allow for A&W to install their signs as per their branding.
So I took it from the last discussion that the council were not so concerned about the signs that are on the A&W buildings and around them, but they are concerned about when they come out close to the highway and because.
Right, so that's sign number 15. That was, so they weren't going for an exemption for that. We had already discussed with, as it been discussed with county that they didn't want that.
Right.
So that's one is the one that's been fully removed from the proposal.
Okay. Everybody still on board with that or? Okay, resolution then.
Okay, be it resolved, the council, sorry, 1 second. Be it resolved that the council decisions with respect to A&W priority permits be recorded as follows. Sign 1, relief from section 3.4 to permit a sign to be located above the roof line of the building is granted. Signs 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, relief from section 7.2 to permit additional fascia signs is granted. Signs 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Relief from section 7.3 to permit additional fascia signs is granted. Sign 14, relief from section 7.3 to permit a sign to be located 1.1 meter from the lot line is granted.
Okay.
I think there was a typo there.
Is there? Okay,
yes,
I better correct it. Yeah.
Signs 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 it's 7.3, but additional freestanding signs.
Freestanding, okay. I will amend that in the,
As amended then?
as amended, yeah.
Okay. Mover and seconder? Pat and do I have a seconder? Carm, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, Public Works. Road status report. Dave? Is Dave coming?
Good morning, council. My road status report for March 2024. So we had ongoing construction with culverts, any culverts that needed replaced. We had a few on the Unicorn Road, brushing and tree removal. So we brushed in around signs, anything that was blocking signs, and picked up any brushing material that was blocking water flow. Ongoing grading activity and sweeping. So we completed our sweeping in town and we're branching off of that. Sanding and salting was still ongoing at the start of the month.
Okay. I see we're gonna do with a washout separately, so.
Yes, yeah, it's a separate one.
Hi, Dave. Needless to say, a lot of concerns about potholes. Can you just give us some type of an update of, I know that you got a plan in place, but could you bring us up to date on where you're at there, please?
So basically, we're using the Rover AI app. It's a camera that's in the patrol truck that is going around with the patroller, and we print off the documents and we send the crews out to dispatch to fix the potholes in those general areas as they arise.
Barry?
Dave, how, just because we get calls all the time, so
Yep.
do like a rotation, obviously, right? So if you're in the Halliburton Lake area on Tuesday, when are you back there? Like
It really goes off of what we have for staffing at the time, and obviously for the concern rate. So if there is a bad area that has been brought up through calls, then we'll concentrate on that area. And we do rotate throughout the county as much as possible. Sorry, throughout Dysart as much as possible.
That answer? That what you want?
that's just, I'm sure everybody gets calls. I
Yeah.
know Carm's area, my area are always getting we get a lot of emails.
Yeah,
a lot
and
of calls.
everybody's a priority, which
Yeah,
is, I understand that.
I just like to be able to say, give them some sort of answer, you know?
Yeah, so like Barry, like if you were to call us, like obviously we get calls on a daily basis to the call center. So we dispatch off of basically the ongoing concern. Yes, we have a big general population, and at this time of the year, we're just trying to cover all areas. So yes, we rotate throughout the county or throughout Dysart, like I said, and try to cover the hot spots, we call them, right?
Okay, well, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, any other questions for Dick? Okay, resolution, Mallory.
Be it resolved that council receives this report outlining road maintenance activities for March 2024 as information.
Okay, mover and seconder. Carmen Walt, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Road washout.
Okay, so the road washout on Bugner Road, which was April 12th, 2024, we received a call at 3 p.m. Staff visited the site, confirmed the water was over top of the road, and we lost about 15 meters of the road. We closed down the road for that day for access. We uploaded onto 511. And then the next day, the Saturday, the 13th, we had a crew out there, and we brought up one piece of pipe that we could get back into place so we could make it accessible for the people.
So are we waiting on a bigger pipe there or what?
We're bringing the pipes back up. So basically they were washed down into the creek bed. We're bringing those pipes back up and we're going to put them back into place.
But they weren't big enough. Why wouldn't we put a bigger one in that would take?
It's a 5-foot pipe. Rob assessed the situation and he wants to build it up higher. So he's going to build the grade up higher so it's above the dam. Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're doing. Okay. Okay, any questions on the washout? Okay, resolution.
Okay, be it resolved, the council received this report regarding washout events of April 12th, 2024 as information.
Okay, mover and seconder, Walt and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay, temporary speed bumps.
Okay, so temporary speed bumps at the AJ LaRue Community Center parking lot. At its September 13th, 2023 meeting, Councillor Casey raised the possibility of placing temporary speed bumps in the area of the arena and curling club, citing complaints by the general public that vehicles are speeding past the main entrance of both. Staff met with Councillor Casey this spring and 2 locations were agreed upon for the trial.
That,
That's great, Dave. It's good to see that. Like I said, people are trying to beat traffic around that corner by the arena and scooting through there, but anyways, it'll be welcome for sure. Thanks again.
and we're going with the ones that we can take out, right?
The ones we can remove for winter for snowplow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Okay,
I've been, and yeah, I can vouch from time spent at almost every rake in Ontario. I think that there's speed bumps in almost everywhere I go.
yeah,
So,
fair enough. Okay. Everybody go to that resolution then?
Be it resolved that council authorize a trial of temporary speed bumps at 2 locations in the AG LaRue Community Center parking lot, and that the temporary speed bumps be funded by the transportation operating budget.
Okay, mover and seconder. That and Barry, all in favor? Barry, thank you. Okay. Winter maintenance. This one's there every year, I think.
Yeah, so the municipality received a request to provide winter maintenance along Bear Paw Road from Walter Borg on April 11th, 2024. Bear Paw Road is located on a municipal right-of-way created in Plan 482 and is one of the several roads only seasonally maintained by Dysart et al. In that area. Bear Paw Road has a road width of 6 meters and grades greater than 12%. So it's very narrow and steep hills, and the turnarounds are not accessible for our snowplows.
Actually, back in 71 or 72, when that deal was made, some of those roads were left off because there just wasn't simply enough money to reconstruct them to any kind of municipal standard. So I don't think that's changed. Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, I have a resolution then.
Be it resolved that council deny the request for winter maintenance on Bear Paw Road.
Okay, mover and seconder. Walt and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Stop sign request on Graydon Lane.
Okay, so stop sign request, Graydon Lane. Staff received a request for a stop sign at the intersection of Graydon Lane and Sir Sam's Road. As an interim measure, the staff have installed a yield sign at the location as they do not require a bylaw to install and enforce. This was put in place already. Basically, there's multiple routes that you can take to get around from turning out of that lane. Also, a stop sign is not going to impact traffic along Sir Sam's Road. It's going to continue the same.
So maybe the yield sign will work then.
I think it will. I think that's all we need to put in place there, truthfully.
Okay. Resolution, Mallory?
Okay. Be it resolved that council directs staff to return to a future meeting with the draft consolidated stop sign bylaw, which includes a new sign placed at Graydon Lane at Sir Sam's Road, if recommended, as well as other staff recommendations.
Okay. Mover and seconder. Pat and Walt, I guess, all in favor? Carried. Okay.
Murray, if I could just jump in, we're kind of talking about roads and stuff like that. Does anyone, I know Rob's not here, best question for him, but have we made any headway on perhaps a crosswalk across from Hook, Line and Sinker yet? Does anybody know or? I think,
No, I haven't heard anything, but we should be
I
following
think
that.
we should look at that because it's problematic there for sure. But anyways, I don't want to keep everybody hopping on,
No, no, that's-
on road safety, but on the same note, I think it's needed. But anyway,
Yeah, it is needed, you're right.
Nancy's got a question.
Yes, Nancy. Nancy?
I just remember the last time we went through the crosswalk area there and the county had done a study or report and it was too close to the intersection. So we do have, Rob does have some, studies and stuff that was done on that within the last 5 years, I believe. Just before we, try to reinvent the wheel, we've already got some statistics that he will have access to.
Nancy's
That
right.
may have changed with the new owner there, though. There's a lot more seats in there, but anyway.
I
Okay.
think it was more based on traffic flow and stuff, but Nancy's
is,
right. He
yeah,
does
okay.
have that information.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I guess we're all right with the stop sign request, so we're on to with John.
Good
Thanks.
morning, council. This
Thanks,
first
Dave.
report is from the direction of the Dysart Council in regards to empty beer, wine, and spirit containers at our landfill sites. As council is aware, there are two complementary deposit return programs used to divert these alcohol containers away from landfill: the beer store packaging program and the deposit return program for wine, spirit, and cooler containers. In both instances, consumers return those acceptable materials to the beer store for a refund on their deposit. And returning items to the beer store containers must be separated by container type and color. Customers are encouraged to limit their returns to 120 individual containers per visit, and returns of more than 120 individual containers would be taken to a beer store bulk return location, the nearest one being in Bracebridge, Ontario. Currently, Dysart encourages consumers to drop off their empty beer, wine, and spirit containers at the beer store for a refund on their deposit. If consumers drop off empty containers at Dysart's waste disposal sites, landfill attendants can choose to manage those containers on their own time, or they can direct users to place those containers in recycling for containers. Back when Dysart was financially responsible for funding the hauling and processing of blue box materials, it would have been cost prohibitive to include those items in recycling for containers, as they would have led to increased hauling and processing costs, especially as glass is a heavy material. Since the implementation of Ontario Regulation 391/21, Dysart no longer funds the hauling and processing of blue box materials, so adding those containers to the blue box would have no bearing on our operational costs. It should be noted that as part of that regulation, those empty beer, wine, and spirit containers are not designated as acceptable materials, but they are not currently considered contamination either. So we wouldn't currently face any penalties for including them. This report outlines 4 different options that Dysart could consider for managing empty beer, wine, and spirit containers. Option 1 is no longer accepting any of those containers at our landfill site. In that option, anyone bringing those containers to Dysart landfills would be told they aren't accepted, and the customer would be directed to return them directly to the beer store. If nonprofits wanted to on their own properties, they could establish or continue take-back solutions for those containers, ensuring they comply with provincial regulations, county and municipal bylaws, such as property standards. Option 2 would be if anyone were to bring those empty beer, wine, or spirit containers to a Dysart landfill, they would be told to place them in recycling for containers. And again, nonprofits could continue their own take-back programs on their own property if they wished. Option 3 would be to issue a request for expressions of interest in REOI to solicit a nonprofit organization or organizations to operate a take-back program for empty beer, wine, and spirit containers at our 5 sites. In this scenario, the REOI would specify the expected scope of work, for example, the daily hours required at each site, health and safety requirements, for example, the nonprofits required to wear personal protective equipment, insurance provisions, for example, having commercial general liability insurance coverage in the amount not less than $5 million, the term, for example, a 3-year agreement with options for 1-year extensions. Staff would prepare the REOI documents for council to review before the REOI is issued publicly. And then once the REOI was closed, staff would review the submissions and make recommendations to council whether work should be awarded to the interested parties. And should a waste disposal site not be awarded, it would then function using option 1. So that site would not accept any of those containers. We do have 2 local examples of this in place in Algonquin Highlands. They have 4 waste disposal sites. At one of their sites, they have a formal agreement with the Dorset Lions Clubs to manage those empty beer, wine, and spirit containers. At the other sites, landfill attendants choose whether to manage those containers on their own time or direct them into recycling for containers. This report does have a link to the 18-page agreement between Algonquin Highlands and the Dorset Lions Club that council can read to understand the terms that Algonquin Highlands has in place with that nonprofit. In Minden Hills, this year they issued an REOI for nonprofit organizations to manage those empty beer, wine, and spirit containers at their 4 waste disposal sites. 4 notices were received, and Minden Hills is entering into agreements with a number of local nonprofits to run those programs. Minden Hills environmental compliance approvals, the ECAs for their sites, permit new waste diversion programs to be implemented with 3 months notice to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Our environmental compliance approvals do not have that provision, so likely we will need to make and pay for amendments to our ECAs to accommodate a waste diversion program that differs from what is currently offered on site. This report does have a link to the 8-page draft agreement between the Township of Minden Hills and the nonprofit organizations. The 4th option that's presented in this report is simply status quo. So in this scenario, if consumers drop off those containers at the sites, landfill attendants could choose to manage them on their own time, or they could direct users to place those empty containers in recycling for containers.
Okay,
That is all for this report.
it's a fairly complex. Not, I mean, I can't see anybody bidding on all five sites. You might go out to Conesus Lake and you wouldn't get enough to bother, so, or I don't know about Harcourt either, so I don't know, it seems to me it's working the way it is, but I don't mind to say that if there's a not-for-profit that would benefit from it, I think they probably should be given the opportunity. Could we run an ad for a month and see what we get? John?
We can do that. I think it would be best if we create the REOI of what our scope of work would be for potential sites, so that council's aware what our expectations are around what a potential service provider nonprofit would be offering on site.
Okay. So what you're saying is more complicated than it looks.
Yeah.
Right?
I like option 4 myself.
And I like
Yeah.
option 4.
Yeah. 4? Well,
I'm just curious, does anybody have any idea how much money, like, say, one of the landfill sites are accumulating there in a month? Any idea? Anybody?
Because it isn't a program managed by the municipality, we aren't aware of what the materials that they're handling, the quantity would be.
So all our landfill sites, we're taking care of it ourselves right now, right?
The landfill attendants do it on their own time, yes.
On their own time. Say that again, on their own time.
Correct.
What would happen if we continued that way, but half of the profits were designated to one of our, whether it's our fire department or one of our special service groups? Anybody be interested in that?
John, I really struggle with the line of they do it on their own time. Everybody's well aware they do it when they're on Dysart's time. We're getting stuff out of the landfill that really is going to the landfill on that note. It's being recycled, which is positive on that note, but I'm with Murray there in terms of putting it out for some sort of a proposal from our local groups. Let's not overcomplicate this thing because it's just pulling beer bottles out of the recycling. So
I think just as if we have any service provider on site, whether it be a hauler for blue box materials or C&D material or empty beer, wine, and spirit containers, you still need to have some scope of work available so they know what their expectations are around hours of operation, interaction with the public, personal protective equipment, and insurance, as we need to protect ourselves and the tax base from any liability that could occur on site with people maybe acting unsafely.
I agree with that, but do we have that now? With their own guys doing it?
All of the current staff are trained in health and safety, yes.
Okay. And to get the beer bottles to the store and everything?
Again, they do that on their own time with their own personal vehicles.
John, they don't do that. They sort everything on Dysart's time, so let's keep that square.
I can say going into sites on the days when the sites are closed to the public, they are definitely in on their own time doing this.
Right.
I just have a question.
Yeah, Nancy?
So if they're going like into the sites when the sites are closed, are they still, and something happens, where's the liability lie in that? Because they're kind of there when they're not working. Are they, is Dysart's liability covering them on their own time in the site that's closed? I just wondered about that.
I don't have the answer to that question. It definitely is an insurance specialist, I think, who need to answer that question.
Pretty hard to answer yourself taking a few bottles out of a barrel, but anyway.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yep.
Like, to me, this is my opinion, is that if the landfill site workers knew that the half of it was going to go to helping out one of our special interest groups, or say our fire department, I think, that'd be a real positive for them, and it'd be in other words, the system would stay the same. And it does seem to be working, but there's a lot of questioning. There's people out there questioning this for sure. And I think everybody would make sure that when they brought the bottles, they wouldn't be throwing them into the bins. They'd be making sure that they get to the landfill site. If they knew that it was going to, some of this going to go to some people that really needed it. Not that we all don't need it.
You know what's going to happen if we complicate it and they go in there with bottles, they're just going to throw them in the household garbage. You see them do stuff like that all the time. So you're not going to get rid of them. You're just going to move the problem. So at least they're putting them out there now. So I still think we can look for some alternatives. But
We look for alternatives, and if we get no feedback, then we just carry on the way we are.
yeah, exactly. So can you design something to put out there, John?
Yes, definitely. I can do that.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. Thank you.
So we'll go with option 3 for John to bring something back to council to look at. Does that work for council?
Yeah.
Okay, so be it resolved that council directs staff to proceed with option 3 to manage empty beer, wine, and spirit containers at Dysart's waste disposal sites.
Okay, mover and seconder. Pat and do I have a Walt? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Waste management summary.
This is a summary report for the first quarter of 2024, outlining the variation between 2024 and 2023 in terms of vehicle counts, tonnage, revenue, and expenses. We had a 3.6% increase in vehicle counts in the first quarter of 2024 compared to 2023. For tonnages that we managed, we actually had a decrease of 20.15% of blue box materials, a decrease of 2.33% in garbage materials, and a 37.50% increase in construction and demolition waste. The blue box materials, I have been in discussion with the new service provider, Waste Connections of Canada, and Reverse Logistics Group, who are responsible for managing that program, because that tonnage variation does seem surprising. Essentially, tonnage for blue boxes down across the entire province, and it's a material type that we continue to monitor to see if that's going to level out or come back up as we come into the higher consumption spring and summer months. The construction and demolition waste increase, I think, can solely be attributed to the very mild winter that we had and the amount of construction work that still continued throughout the January, February, and March of this year. In terms of revenue, we had a 28.73% increase in revenue in Q1 of this year compared to Q1 of last year. Just keep in mind that we did not increase our tipping fees in 2023 until later in the year. So some of that is would potentially be accommodated through that change. In expenses, as council is aware, there are no blue box hauling and processing expenses anymore, as we've converted to Ontario Regulation 391/21. There was a 24.32% increase in garbage and hauling and processing costs, again attributed to the new garbage hauling and processing agreement that started at the beginning of this year. There was a 35.27% decrease, sorry, a 40% decrease in construction and demolition waste hauling and processing, again related to the new construction and demolition waste hauling and processing agreement that started at this year. There is an attachment that kind of lists all the different blue box garbage and construction demolition waste streams, breaking out hauling and processing costs over multiple years, so you can get a sense of where we're tracking.
Okay. That's pretty clear, I think. Okay, resolution, Mallory.
Be it resolved that council received the first quarter 2024 waste management summary for information.
Okay, mover and seconder. Tammy and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay, single tier waste management study, which I'm sure we've all read 2 or 3 times, John.
It's a big one. At the April 10th, 2024 meeting, Haliburton County Council received the single tier waste management service delivery review final report, which included a staff report, a delegation to County Council from Dillon Consulting Limited, and the single tier waste management service delivery review final report. Lower tier municipal staff provided an introduction to the review, and a representative from Dillon Consulting provided an overview presentation of the final report and its recommendations. County Council members posed questions and commented on the report's findings and recommendations. This report does have a link to the YouTube video, so if you are interested, you can watch Haliburton County Council from April 10th and the discussion that County Council members had. At that meeting, County Council passed a resolution to receive the report for information, and that the report be referred to the lower tier municipalities for comment, and that the item returned to the May 22nd, 2024 meeting of County Council for consideration. Why was this service delivery review conducted? As council is aware, the four lower tier municipalities with large geographic boundaries and small population sizes provide municipal waste management services and programs such as collection, processing, and disposal. Waste management services vary throughout the 4 municipalities, including disposal fees, garbage bag limits, policies, and procedures. Residents and businesses can be confused by these variations. There are some collaborative initiatives that exist between the 4 municipalities, such as the Haliburton County Waste Wizard web app and mobile app, and the Household Hazardous Waste Days. In November 2020, the Haliburton Municipalities Service Delivery Review Final Report by Strategy Corp was presented to County Council and the councils of the 4 lower tier municipalities, and waste management was one of those areas identified in that report. And subsequently, County Council, acting as the Haliburton County Service Delivery Review Steering Committee, passed a resolution that directed staff to continue investigating 1-tier waste management service delivery. Some of the highlights of the final report include a detailed review of the current state of waste management amongst the 4 lower tier municipalities, a jurisdictional review, a proposed service delivery model for the future state, an evaluation of the service delivery model, and next steps. The final report analyzes the concept of providing waste management services under a single administration at the county level. And in a coordinated approach, all waste management functions that are currently managed individually by each lower tier municipality would be centralized, and common services would be covered for user fees and the county rate tax levy. 3 service delivery models were proposed and evaluated, and the report's recommendation was to proceed with option 3, a coordinating transition committee that that would then lead to a county administered solid waste services. So eventually, this committee would oversee the process of having waste eventually become administered by the county. In terms of the kind of the initial reaction to the report, this county council identified kind of three themes around environmental stewardship, customer service levels, and cost savings. This council, Dysart Council, has received information about this report during the budget processes as we were building up to this report. It is exceptionally lengthy. A lot of detail goes into it. And so we're providing this report for information and for your discussion around whether waste management should be moved to the county level under a single tier administration.
John, I think that the four managers like yourself from the municipalities could sit down together, and I'm sure you were very much part of the study, and decide if there are common areas that we could all have the same fee on, and that's the kind of things that annoy people. They go to one landfill in Algonquin Highlands and they get charged $30 for a cubic yard of waste and come here and pay 45 or something. So I think that's the kind of thing that's a good starting point. I personally see no value in causing another bureaucracy that's going to be $100 and some $1,000, and I don't see it's only going to cost money to do it to manage it from the county. It's all right to say that it's going to be everybody's going to have the same rules, but everybody doesn't have the same issues, and I'm not prepared to have somebody drive from Percy Lake and have no landfill in Halliburton Lake and come down to Halliburton with their garbage after a weekend at the cottage. We do have to provide a service. And that's one of the few things that seasonal residents get. So I'm really going to have difficulty as long as I'm there with a single administration administered by the county. I think we can do it as well here with yourself and in cooperation with the other managers. Anyway, that's me. So can you agree with that? I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. You think you can come up with some things yourselves?
My counterparts of the other municipalities and I are very actively working in partnership as often as we can. We talk about being kind of at a collaboration capacity limit, where now we're getting to the point where every single Facebook post or social media activity or new diversion program, do we have to consult all three other municipalities before we proceed? Or when are we working for 4 municipalities or just our own? It's definitely a little bit of a challenge. Things like user feeds are hard to do, to harmonize, admittedly, because you have 4 different councils with different perspectives. So I come back to mattress recycling, which from a waste diversion perspective is a no-brainer, where the user pays the cost recovery fee to recycle a mattress or box spring. But at the moment, that program is being implemented piecemeal because of concern about what those user fees could be to the public. And so that becomes a challenging, where automatically we can get out of sync with our neighbors, just based on our individual needs or council priorities.
Well, I guess what I was trying to say is, if the 4 of you can't agree on something that's common, then I guess we do have a problem. But
staff agreeing is one thing. It's 4 councils have to agree.
I understand that, but if the 4 staff agreed and had the reasons for agreeing, I think council would be reasonable, but I could be wrong. So I sure like to try that approach, but anyway, you are working together anyway. So
yeah, definitely. And I think if council's open to me coming back with ideas that the other municipalities are embracing and supporting collaboratively, then maybe that's the way we can help work on waste diversion programs here in Dysart.
Okay. All right. So,
Yeah, I think the landfill sites in all 4 of our municipalities have been operating for a long time. And it's definitely a big issue. It's a huge issue. And so with you and your other waste management managers, I mean, all the time that you're talking that, do you ever talk about incinerating garbage?
We are aware that the county has passed a resolution to explore incineration or energy from waste. We aren't aware if the county has allocated any funds to hire a consultant. The information I can provide to you is that there are 2 municipal waste facilities operating in Ontario. The one in Durham region, besides costing $29 million for the environmental assessment, and costing $255 million to construct, with an annual operating budget of $16.8 million. That site is one of the smallest that Covanta, the company that runs it, will operate in North America. They process 140,000 metric tons of waste
Okay,
per
I don't
year.
want to know what, I don't want to know.
But you're
I
asking
don't-
for
I don't wanna-
information, I can
don't
give you
wanna know what Durham-
information. We talk about incineration. I think
I'd like to ask you another question. You've answered that one. I don't want to know what Durham's doing. This is rural Ontario, everything north of Highway 7. Why aren't we talking about this? We can't keep trucking it down the road. You're talking about dollars, money. How much money is Dysart spending a year? I mean, you're telling me that the only size of an incinerator is the one that's in Durham?
that company will build,
Do you really
yes.
believe that?
That
There-
is
there is
that
other
is the
companies.
average size in Ontario of the 2 facilities, yes.
Yeah.
I recognize their
Well, they
facilities.
have a little bit more population, correct?
They have a lot more population and a considerable
Right.
lot more garbage. In addition, they also have a very robust green bin program for food waste composting, which I think that the Ministry of Environment would be looking for Dysart or other participating municipalities to have in place, as you want to have that diversion away from landfill and incineration.
Well, I can, in my opinion, I can't see any sense in going down the road that we're just continually going down in regard to our landfill sites, especially with Ministry of Environment, with the restrictions they're going to be putting on these landfill sites within that report, that very expensive report that we got at the county the other day. So, I mean, I really would like to see us pursuing companies that build smaller incinerators. In Northern Ontario and Quebec and all over Canada, there's mines that are working, they have incinerators at them. So, I mean, this is 2024. It's a lot, they're a lot more efficient than they ever were before when they used to talk about putting incinerators in. So it's time for us, as far as I'm concerned, just forget about trying to work together to make sure that we're being cost efficient for our taxpayers in regard to our landfill sites. But it's time to really start thinking about incinerating, putting one in the center of the county and having, some transfer stations where garbage be taken to the incinerator instead of driving down the road 8 hours down, 8 hours back. Thank you.
John, I worked at Covanta for a stretch, and I do know that, I know your cost numbers are likely correct on that note, but again, in terms of Walt's talking, like, it's all scales of economy, so we don't need it that size an incinerator in this area, but also it's a waste to energy facility, and it puts millions of dollars back into the taxpayer's pocket through hydro generation. Right? So
Absolutely, yes.
If the
We
scope-
are aware of that, especially in Europe, there are smaller facilities. Keep in mind that Europe has obviously different environmental framework. They have extensive waste diversion programs such as Blue Box, food waste composting. In Ontario, the focus definitely seems to be around anaerobic decomposition for food waste and creating biogas through that process and creating electricity
There's
there.
quite a handful of things, but again, we take the recipe for what works for this community or this county or this neck of the woods here and try and make something out of it. Like, with no offense, the feeling that you just mentioned with all these not ballooned, but costs you mentioned, sounds like we're beat even before we start. So why bother even looking farther, right? So I think that's what Walt's saying. I think everybody in the community, and I bet you a lot of people in Ontario would say the same thing. We're always complaining about carbon in the air and carbon footprints here, there, and all over. Meanwhile, we're taking this garbage that everybody's bringing to our dumps, and then it's going down to Michigan, and it's going over a bank. So, and again, you can't control that yourself.
I just
but-
want to clarify, our garbage is not going to Michigan in Dysart. I just want to make that clear for the
Okay,
public.
but it's still going over a bank, right?
It was
Still
going over
bank.
bank when it was in Dysart. A landfill is a landfill, but I
Okay,
agree,
but
energy from
the
waste is something
landfills
we
in-
should be
in Dysart are being
investigating.
closed and it's going over a bank somewhere else.
Yeah,
Correct. So it's not really getting dealt with the problem. It's just taking our dirty laundry and throwing it in somebody else's pile.
yes.
So, anyway. So collectively, I think if we, so Walton Murray, is that something that you guys can talk about at
Yeah.
the county level? Because it's been brought up
And
once.
we did bring it up there, yeah. Or
Okay.
Walt did.
Anyway. That's all I got to say.
Anybody else want to comment on this? Okay, resolution then?
Okay, be it resolved that council received for information the single tier waste management service delivery review final report by Dillon Consulting Limited, which was received by Haliburton County Council on April 10th, 2024. And further, that Dysart Council supports maintaining the delivery of waste management services at the lower tier municipal level with collaborations with other lower tier municipalities as expedient. And finally, that this decision be reported back to Haliburton County Council.
Okay, mover and seconder. Nancy and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Yep.
John, just circling back, we talked there about scales and some other processes we were looking at. Do you have an update on that or where we're at with that?
Yeah, so we'll be reporting back to Dysart Council, hopefully I'm expecting June with an updated plan of what Haliburton landfill could look like. With incorporating a scale system, moving the entrance, revising where all the containers are located for public drop-off, and also a different option for managing construction and demolition waste. So it's a very robust plan that we'll be presenting to council in a short while for consideration and then for budget determination and coming into 2025, 2026.
Well, and again, we have to open up our C of A for that. Is that correct?
We will, yes.
Okay, you already know this and you're already doing it, but just make sure if we got other waste diversion windows that we could work on, that's in that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Murray, do you mind if we take a break?
Well, I was just gonna, are you people, you've been sitting there all morning. Do you have a delegation time or? Oh, okay, you're just visiting. Well, that's good. Okay, so what's your name? Smart? So maybe we could get Chris on here first or Jeff and deal with this and then these people could, before they get seat sores. And then we'll take a break.
So we have Mark at the back. Is that who it is, Murray?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else or? No.
Would council like me to start?
Yeah, I think you can start, Chris.
I don't know.
Okay, thank you. So my understanding is we went to item 10A on the agenda. This is for bylaw 2024-37 to execute a severance agreement for concurrent severance application. This is for the lands of Smart and Smart 5 Holding.
Is that where we are? Sorry, Chris. Or are we on the severance proposal for lot addition for Mark Isles? Is that who's sitting at the front of the room right now?
I'm not sure. I heard Smart, but maybe we are. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Chris, you're right. It's Smart.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chris. Keep going.
I think
No worries.
wrong name there. Sorry. Okay.
The severance agreement is a condition of concurrent severance application for the subject property that will implement the requirements of the supporting environmental study related to the severance, and that development occur as per the approved plans. Staff recommend that council approve bylaw 2024-37, which, as mentioned, is a bylaw to authorize the execution of the severance agreement with Michelle and Paul Smart and Smart 5 Holdings, which are the owners of the subject properties.
Okay. You have anything to add, sir?
No, nothing to add. Chris has done a great job.
Thank you. Well, that's simple. You've listened to all this talk all day, and now you have nothing to say. I'm wearing you down. Okay, so I guess, any comments on it? Okay, I guess we're good to go then.
Okay, I'll read the resolution. So be it resolved that file number L04-SV-2024-002 for the lands of Smart and Smart 5 Holdings Incorporated be received for information, and that bylaw 2024-37 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a severance agreement with Michelle and Paul Smart for the lands located in part lots 8 and 9, concession 8, parts 1 to 8, Plan 19R-3957, Part 9, Plan 19R-3776, in the geographic township of Dudley, municipality of Desert et al. Be read a first, second, and third time, pass, sign, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Okay. Okay, a mover and seconder, Nancy and Tammy, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we'll take a break for 15 minutes and then we'll finish. Okay, we'll resume now, and we got Mark Isles in attendance, and is Jeff coming there, or?
No, if we're on item 10A of the agenda, which is the severance proposal for a lot addition. The proposal is to convey and merge the two properties as identified on the key map into one larger lot. The proposal is considered a lot addition. No new lots are being created as a result of this proposal. In the report, staff has outlined some compliance issues on the subject property that will need to be addressed. A condition has been included in the resolution that the owner is to bring the property into compliance with the zoning bylaw for the compliance issues. It is recommended that council support the general principle of the proposed consent as submitted, subject to the included conditions as provided at the top of this report and comments received through the public review process. I believe that Mark Ailes is in attendance and could speak to his application, or if he has any questions.
Yeah, if you have anything you'd like to comment on, for sure, Mark.
Gave me up today. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I just want to build a garage. Just want to build a garage. We have two lots side by each, and we just have so many toys and whatnot. So I'm hoping to get a garage with a basement to make a smaller footprint on the property. But we have the two properties side by side that have to be joined to make this happen, because it's pretty steep over where we are near Wilberforce.
Right.
And yeah, the idea is just a smaller garage with a basement, cars up top, toys down below, and that's about it.
Where's your property?
Grace River Road
Oh, yeah,
on
okay.
Grace Lake, Wilberforce.
Grace River Road.
Mhm.
Well, it's a quiet little area in there.
It's beautiful in there.
Yeah, yeah,
Quiet lake, not many cottages on it.
Yeah.
And we're on the private roadway there.
yeah. I know where you are, I think, idea. Okay, any questions or concerns for Mark's proposal? So it's being recommended, right, Chris?
That's correct, subject to the conditions as provided in the
Here are the conditions.
Yeah, the exact conditions were like, someone said there was too many outbuildings or something. Most of the outbuildings are gonna come down when we
Yeah,
build
you
the
have to take
garage.
those- Yeah, you have to take those down.
Yeah, they're all full of snowmobiles and dirt bikes.
You got too many toys, like you said.
The more toys you have, your kids will keep coming.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
right.
goal.
That's a
And-
good thing.
That is, then they're not stuck in the
You know where
city
they are.
causing
Yeah.
trouble.
And sorry, just for clarification, so that that condition is that to bring the property into compliance or to remove them, that's part of the condition to approve the severance. So I just wanted to confirm that.
See that now, yeah, for sure. Okay, I guess we're good then. Resolution.
Okay, be it resolved that council support the general principle of the severance proposal for file number D00SV 2024-007, lands of Stransky and Ailes, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Okay, moving seconder, Tammy and Walt, all in favor? Gary, thank you. Thank you,
All
Mark.
right, thanks very much, everybody.
Right, bye. Okay, Barbara.
Okay, so good morning, and the first item on the finance
You
agenda
have
is
somebody else on planning?
Oh, sorry, Barbara. We do have
One more,
Chris
Barbara.
Jones waiting in the background as well here. Maybe we should go to
Okay.
that item too. Sorry, Barbara, we keep putting you off.
We'll get to you, Barbara. Okay, bring him in. That's number, that's Paul Smart then, isn't it?
It's
this-
10C.
Yeah, so this will be Lands of Jones.
Oh,
Just
okay.
waiting for them to come in. If they're in, I can start.
Okay, they're not in yet, are they
Oh.
here?
Yep.
There
here
they
it
are,
is.
yeah. Through Zoom, I see them on screen. So I will start. So this is for item 10C on the agenda, which is the Land of Jones. This is again for a severance proposal for a lot addition. The proposal is to sever a portion of lands from the subject property, which will then be conveyed and merged to the benefiting lands. The proposal is considered a lot addition. No new lots are being created as a result of this proposal. It is recommended that council support the general principle of the proposed consent as submitted, subject to the included conditions provided at the top of the report and comments received through the public review process.
Okay. So it's being recommended then?
That's correct.
Okay. I guess if it's being recommended, you're satisfied with it, Chris?
Yeah.
Yes, the report looks pretty straightforward. I don't really have anything to add or say. I just thought I'd log in case there's questions.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So have a resolution then, Mallory?
Sure. Be resolved that council support the general principle of a severance proposal for file number D00SV 2024-003, Lands of Jones, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Mover and seconder. Carm and Walt, all in favor? Carrie, thank you. Okay, now Barbara. we're gonna-
Thank you.
Now we're good to go, Barbara.
Okay, well,
This will be a lot friendlier visit than the last one we had with you. A lot more.
so the first report here is the metered sewage reading at March 31st of this year. And so the total use is down about 2.3%. It seems to be attributed to one user, which we will follow closely. Their readings tend to be off skew every now and again. And so that concludes the report, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
I think last week, the consultant we had to work on the sewage plant met, so I hope that's moving forward. Anyway, any questions on the metered sewage report? Okay, mover and seconder.
I'll read the resolution here. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the quarterly metered sewer readings report for the period ending March 31st, 2024.
Okay, mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Good. Okay.
Okay, so we have the check summary report as of March 2024. Total disbursements for the month were $6,786,952. And March was a busy month. We had our quarterly transfer payments to the boards of education and the county, and that totaled just under 5.4 million. And we also had the payout of the mortgage to Harbour Holdings for 1.5 million.
Okay. See, pretty straightforward. Okay. Resolution, Mallory?
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the March 2024 check summary.
Mover and seconder, Barry and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Sorry, Nancy, I missed you again. Okay, reserves and reserve funds analysis.
Yes, so we're currently undergoing our audit for 2023, and part of the annual audit process, we like to provide the auditor with a list of reserves and reserve fund balances at the end of the year. And so we have three categories of reserves and reserve funds. We have our reserves, and at the end of 2023, we have 2.4 million. Our discretionary reserve funds are 5.6 million, and our obligatory reserve funds are 1.5 million. There is a summary attached with the report that provides council with the details of each reserve and their balance. In total, at the end of 2023, we have just over $9.6 million in reserves and reserve funds.
It has been worse, for sure. Okay, resolution, Mallory?
Guess I need to unmute myself first. Be it resolved that council approves the 2023 reserves and reserve funds analysis as presented in the attached summary report and supporting schedules A, B, and C.
Okay, mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Revenue and expenditure.
Yes, so we have the revenue and expenditure report at December 31st of 2023. The municipality closed out with an operating surplus of $56,026. There were a few major items contributing to the surplus. We had a very healthy year in assessments on property taxation. Supplemental billings were $192,000. We were also very fortunate to earn some significant interest on our bank balances, and that generated $196,000. To the contrary, we had a couple of items that contributed to a budget deficit, and that's the road capital construction projects. That program was expanded throughout the year. The net impact was just over $200,000. And we also had a deficit on our landfill tipping fees of $140,000.
Boy, that goes up and down a lot, doesn't it? Okay. Well, it could have been a lot worse if we hadn't had that little surplus. It could have been down a couple $100,000 easily enough. Okay, resolution, Mallory,
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the revenue and expenditure report at December 31st, 2023.
mover and seconder. Walt and Barry, all in favor? Carried. Okay, revenue and expenditure up to March 31st.
Yes, so this is the current report for the first quarter of 2024. Relatively quiet quarter. The main activity is recognizing 50% of our property taxation revenue through the interim tax billing. Departments are preparing for a busy summer. So at this time, we haven't really had any significant capital expenditures. We'll most likely see those in the third quarter of 2024.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, resolution.
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the revenue and expenditure report at March 31st, 2024.
Mover and seconder. Nancy and Pat, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay. Administration.
All right, that's me. Okay, so the first report here is Algonquin Cookhouse is looking to extend their patio. It's the exact same request that they had in 2023. So their patio is located entirely on their private property, and they don't put any structures up. So the request is the same as last year, and staff are recommending approval.
Okay.
Council has any questions though, please let me know.
You have a question, Tammy?
Yes, I just wondered if there was any way that he doesn't have to come back and keep doing this temporary thing, because it's not like a temporary one where they take a parking lot or parking space on the main street. I mean,
So he would have to extend his license through the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. So he'd need to speak, because they're actually the licensing agency. What they require if you want to do a temporary license is that you get approval through the municipality. But if you want to extend your liquor license area permanently, you need to kind of renew your official liquor license through them. So that would be an application directly to them.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's why it's a good thing to do the temporary ones, because people they might not do it every year, depending on staffing and stuff like that. But if that's not going to be a problem for them, then I suggest they look into it for sure, because then they don't have to worry about it.
I'm taking it's the date because it's from Friday, May 17th to October 14th. And but can we do this like as a 2-year thing, just in those dates?
Temporary extensions can only last for 8 months, so they can't go above that. So we usually grant the license between this time period as a standard. He said he wanted exactly the same one as last year, which is why we put this time frame in. But if he wanted it up to 8 months, then he could. But again, he would have to do it again next year.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to save him.
Saving paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every year. Like if you knew it was coming back next year, could he not put 2025 as well? But you're saying that it's a limit of
The Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, it's their limit, and provincial legislation as well under the Liquor License and Control Act.
So if it's is it 8 months per year? Like could
Yes.
2025 as well for next time when he has to do it next year?
It's in a period of 8 months. So I think you can't go beyond that, because they really don't want people using the temporary extension as a permanent one. So they limit it pretty well.
All right, thanks.
They want, if you want your licensed premises would not be subject to a temporary outdoor physical extension for more than a total of 8 months in a calendar year. So they don't want people using it as a permanent extension. They want it truly to be temporary.
So, but he could do this every year for the next 10 years.
For sure. Yeah. And he's welcome to, but he has to reach out to us if he wants to do it. Like staff aren't going to reach out to local restaurants and ask them. They do unfortunately need to reach out to staff. So.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Okay, resolution then? Mel?
Sure. Be it resolved that council authorizes Algonquin Cookhouse to temporarily extend their patio located at 3907 Loop Road in 2024, provided that the following criteria is met. 1, the patio must remain on private property. 2, as per OReg 352/22 under the Liquor License and Control Act, the capacity of the area to which the extension applies must allow for at least 1.11 square meters per person. And 3, the temporary licensing extension will run from Friday, May 17th, 2024 to October 14th, 2024.
Okay. Mover and seconder. Tammy and Barry, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Bylaw to impose fees and charges.
So this is our most recent fees and charges bylaw. This one has 2 additions. So one is the fee for the farmers market to use Head Lake Park. And then the other is fee increases for composters and digesters, which are sold at the landfill.
We had that report last time. Okay. Resolution then?
Oh, yeah, I guess. Be resolved that bylaw 2024-34 being a bylaw to impose fees and charges be read a first, second, and third time, pass, sign, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Okay, mover and seconder. Nancy and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bylaw to rescind the authorization of a lease agreement.
Yeah, so this is cleaning, basically putting an end to a historical file. So back in 2015, council agreed to lease municipal lands to a company called Abundant Solar Energy Incorporated. This was through the feed-in tariff program in Ontario, where basically they're encouraging the use of renewable energy sources to feed into the grid. So council agreed to lease. What ended up happening is the program was kind of stopped very shortly after this agreement was made. So 2 of the parcels that are listed on the original bylaw are not municipal ownership anymore. 6 of the parcels never got off the ground. And then the 2 remaining parcels did have leases registered on title, but we had those leases removed because the projects never went forward. So this bylaw is cleaning up the file so that a future generation knows that it's done, basically.
Never got off the ground.
No, unfortunately, it ended right when the lease went out within a year.
Okay, resolution then?
Okay, be it resolved that bylaw 2024-35 being a bylaw to rescind the authorization of the execution of a lease agreement with Abundant Solar Energy Incorporated for the purposes of installing ground mount solar systems for our electricity generation be read a first, second, and third time, pass, sign, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Okay, mover and seconder. Walt and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, records.
Records management. So this is an important topic, but not a very lively one. So the local municipalities in the county have been collaborating on an electronic document and records management system. And as part of this, everyone's been working on getting their retention schedules, which tell us how we file documents and when we can destroy them, all up to date, as well as getting policies and procedures in place for the new system to ensure that staff are using it the way it's intended. So this migration for Dysart is going to take place over 2 years. It's quite a big project. We have planning who are on our test department will be going first in May. So we're hoping that goes well. And so as part of this, in previous years, council approved every update when there was a new retention. There used to be a more complicated process through the Municipal Act where they required the municipal auditor to review your retention as well, and that's no longer a requirement. So staff are recommending that the retention periods be delegated to the clerk or their designate, who is really the most familiar with how this works. And they'll be following the Ontario Municipal Management System called TOMRIMS, which is a management system that a lot of Ontario municipalities use for maintaining their classification system for their records. On top of that bylaw to delegate responsibility to the clerk, there's also a policy which basically enables the establishment of a records management procedural manual, which will allow staff to reference something while they're using our new system and guide them on how to manage their records properly. So if council has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Too complicated for us. So in other words, We're not, we're taking all the old paper records and putting them on digital.
Yeah, that's always the intention, to make everything digital so that you never lose anything. We have records going back, obviously, to when we were created. The goal in the end is to have everything in a record in an electronic form before it all disintegrates or it gets lost, or you always want to back everything up. So that is the eventual goal.
Lots of backup. If you ever had a fire, you wouldn't lose everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we need a resolution on that.
Yeah, so be it resolved that bylaw 2024-36, being a bylaw to get delegate authority for the regulation of retention periods for records of the corporation of the municipality of Dysart et al. Be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. And further, that policy 72, records management policy, be adopted by council as presented.
Okay, mover and seconder. Nancy and Walt, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, are you doing the accessible transportation?
I sure am.
You
One
are.
second.
Good for you.
Open it up here. So, as council probably knows, Dysart has a Dymo bus, which is a specialized transportation service locally. It has to comply with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act and the Integrated Accessibility Standards. So this policy was created to just clearly demonstrate how we're meeting our accessibility standards. It's also providing service guidelines and procedures for both us, the service provider, and passengers of the bus. And it's clarifying things like eligibility requirements, booking requirements, passenger responsibilities, driver responsibilities. We've had a few situations recently where we've had no-shows, and we've had people who need the bus in emergency circumstances, and there's very specific legislation for things like that. So we just want to make sure it's all written out and that everyone understands it. So staff met with the service provider, which our service provider right now is Halliburton Bus Lines. We met a few times just to go over the policy and make sure it aligns with our services and that everyone's on board. And then once this is passed by council, we'll update our website to make sure that it has as much information as possible for people. And we're also going to offer to meet with long-term care and group homes to make sure that they understand it fully, because they utilize the service the most with their residents. Another thing that our service provider mentioned is that they think that a lot of people in town don't know about the Dymo bus. So staff, we're going to be looking into some ways to kind of get the word out. I've updated our brochure, and maybe we'll put it out in high traffic areas in town, because I want to make sure that more people know about it. It's a good service that people should be using, so if they need it. So
Okay.
Any questions?
No, that's been going on for quite a while. It's a good service.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, resolution then.
Sure. So be it resolved that policy 73, specialized transportation policy, be adopted by council as presented.
Okay, mover and seconder. Barry and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Back to Chris and Jeff.
Thank you. So we're just moving to item D, I believe, on planning, which is a bylaw to close and convey the shore road allowance in front of the lands of Jeffrey on Kinesis Lake. Council first reviewed this in January, where they declared the shore road allowance surplus. Mr. and Mrs. Jeffrey are now requesting to amend their application to include the purchase of a small island that's located in front of their property. If you're looking at the survey in the agenda, you will see that the island is actually part of the shore road allowance. The island wasn't declared surplus at the meeting in January because it's actually separate from the mainland portion of the shore road allowance. As per the report, if council chooses to sell the small island, staff recommend a condition that would prevent the island from being sold separately from the mainland parcel. So because they do not abut, they cannot be added together. But you can put a mechanism on title that would at least prevent them from being sold separately. Staff, sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, how far is off? Because typically it's been offered to the association first, Islands Out, on Knees. Just,
Yeah, if you look at the report, it's actually quite close for a majority of the year. The land between the island and the shore are actually dry, so they actually really
so they could
function as
want
part
to
of the
go
subject lands for a majority of the year.
okay, that's a different story then. Yeah,
Yeah, and I spoke to this guy a couple of times too, Murray, and he's brought me in some surveys and he showed me that to put a dock, you need to put the dock in front of the island because you'd encroach on everybody else's property if you put it on an angle, so that's, and then, yeah.
yeah, okay, that sounds good then. So do we want to keep it separate, or do we want to handle it with the lot?
He's content having it all conjoined into one,
Makes sense.
yes.
So is that what we're doing, Jeff? We're putting them both together?
Yes, that's the recommendation because
Yeah.
the island is quite small, so it doesn't meet the minimum requirements outlined in our zoning bylaw.
So you wouldn't be able to put a building on it?
No, it's quite small, 1,700 square feet, the island is.
Okay,
Staff are requesting some further direction in terms of how council would like the land cost to be calculated. Normally the sale prices for shore road allowance are set by standard rates based on linear frontage, so the island is part of the shore road allowance. But given that it's a standalone body of land, in this instance, council may wish to obtain the services of a professional to provide them an estimate of market value, but staff are seeking council direction for that.
Murray, he did tell me too, he did have an appraisal that he said he would forward to Jeff. He's had it appraised of what it's roughly worth, whether we want to use it or use somebody else. I talked to him this morning and he said he does have an appraisal on the land.
he does.
He does. So if we wanted it, we could use it or we could use our own if that's how we choose.
Yeah.
But
Well,
at
I guess
least
we have
at least
to
he's
know.
willing to work with us.
It's worthless.
No, at least he's willing to work with us.
Yeah, okay.
On, right? Yeah.
I didn't mean to say it's worthless. That'd be a good position for him to take. yeah.
Well, he's hoping that.
Well, it's certainly got some value because it's on the road allowance, so I don't know, I'm almost tempted to use the road allowance policy. Yeah, that's fair.
Quick and easy and it's over with.
Yeah, and it's done, yeah. Can we do that, Jeff?
Yep, you can do that. At that rate, the island would be sold for just over $2,600.
No good to anybody else.
No. No, he'd be the only one who'll want it.
And he had no opposition from none of the neighbors either. They all.
Okay. Okay, so,
I have a question.
yeah,
Jeff, do you think there's any other areas where we're going to run into this so that we're setting a precedent by how we determine the price?
I'm not aware of any other areas, but I'm sure they exist. And I don't think you'd be setting a precedent. So the sale of road allowances are at council's sole discretion and subject to whatever conditions you want. So you could go in an opposite direction during the next proposal.
I guess it depends on what the island, how big it is. If you could put a building on it, that's a whole different matter. Okay, so I guess we're ready for a resolution, Mallory.
Okay. Be it resolved that council defers bylaw 2024-38 and bylaw 2024-39, and further that council approves for processing an application by Mr. and Mrs. Jeffrey to purchase a portion of the shore road allowance along the shore of Conesus Lake, including the island in front of their property in part lot 8, concession 1 in the geographic township of Havelock. A mechanism shall be placed on title to prevent the lots from being sold separately. These lands are declared surplus.
Okay, mover and seconder, Carm and Barry, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, next.
So the next report is a bylaw to close and convey a shore road allowance in front of the lands of Refo on Conesus Lake. No concerns from staff, and subject to any questions council may have, staff recommend approval of the bylaws.
No buildings or anything that he has to remove, or?
Not for this one. This was declared surplus a while back and we followed the proper process, did the proper notification and the bylaws are ready to be passed.
Okay. Any questions from council? Okay, mover and seconder.
I'll read the resolution. You want
Oh,
me?
sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
Jumping here.
Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-40, being a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey a portion of the original shore road allowance in front of part lot 20, concession 4 in the geographic township of Havelock, be read a first, second, and third time, pass, sign, and the corporate seal attached thereto. And further, be it resolved that bylaw 2024-41, which is a bylaw to deem Block B, registered Plan 402 in the township of Havelock, not to be within a plan of subdivision for the purpose of Section 53 of the Planning Act, as amended, be read a first, second, and third time, pass, sign, and a corporate seal attached thereto. This bylaw is intended to allow Block B, registered Plan 402, to merge with the Shore Road Allowance, which has been closed and conveyed pursuant to bylaw 2024-40.
Okay. Discussion? Mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Next.
The next report is another road closing application by Mr. Frost and Miss Dixon to purchase the road allowance in front of their property on Kinesis Lake. There are a couple zoning compliance issues on the subject lands. Staff have included conditions for the compliance issues located on the shore road allowance. For the compliance issues that are not located on the shore road allowance, staff have recommended a resolution that they be reviewed by the bylaw enforcement department. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but subject to any questions, staff recommend approval of this application.
So they have a couple of buildings there then that's steel shed and. it doesn't
Yeah,
apply, right?
correct. There's a small shed within the water setback, although it's not located on the shore road allowance. So through this process, we typically don't deal with structures that are not located on the shore road allowance, which is why staff are recommending that it be addressed by the bylaw enforcement department.
Alrighty. Resolution then?
Be it resolved that council approves for processing an application by Mr. Frost and Miss Dixon to purchase a portion of the shore road allowance along the shore of Kinesis Lake in front of their property in part lot 18, concession 3 in the geographic township of Havelock. Pursuant to section 3.2.7 of the official plan, the detached deck located on the shore road allowance shall be removed or brought into compliance with the zoning bylaw. These lands are declared surplus. And further, that council directs the bylaw enforcement department to review the frame shed on deck and dwelling with the attached deck for compliance with respect to the zoning bylaw.
Okay. Mover and seconder. Pat and Nancy, all in favor? Carried. Okay, boy, there's a lot of Kines today. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of activity for shore road allowances up there. The next item is a returning item. Council deferred this license of occupation application at their meeting in February. My understanding is since that time, the mayor and deputy mayor have had the opportunity to meet with the applicant, Mr. Kellett, and staff are seeking direction with regards to the bylaw that would authorize the execution of the license agreement.
Well, we have met with them and we've met with Mr. Begg as well. And it's been considered that we'd get all the parties together to see if we could find a resolution to the overall problem. So we'd like another period of time before we pass this. We'd like to defer it. If that's okay. You okay with that, Mallory?
I'm just gonna read a really quick one. So be it resolved the council defers bylaw 2024-15.
Mover and seconder. Carmen Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay, next is home, that's just outside the office here.
Yes, so this is an application to renew an existing license of occupation with Mr. McGreevy, and you're correct, it's located right across the road from the municipal office. The existing license is for a deck, a stairway, and a stone wall, and it will expire in May. An updated agreement is provided for council's consideration, and if you subject to any questions, staff recommend approval of the renewal.
So they were allowed with the last license to put a deck on there and stairs, right?
Correct.
Almost in the parking lot. It's pretty tight, but anyway. But it is what it is, and I guess our building is too close too. Okay. Okay, I guess resolution, Mallory.
Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-42, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a license of occupation agreement with Paul McGreevy for the use of the original road allowance for Maple Avenue in front of part lot 17, concession 8, part lots 6 and 12, block B, plan 1 in the geographic township of Dysart, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Tammy, you had a point?
Oh, yeah, just have, because it says staff question, whether council would prefer automatic renewal. Like, so can we do that? So it doesn't have to keep coming back?
And that's put there for council's consideration. It is something that can be used in licenses or in the agreements for more permanent encroachments. So it is up to council. Based on the mayor's comments, I question whether that would be a good addition to the agreement at this time, but it is up to council.
But the problem is if you change the fee, you're stuck with the other agreement.
Well, for automatic renewal, it would still be the same fee annually. They just wouldn't have to come back after this term of council with a similar application as today to renew their
I
license.
understand that, but if we moved the fee from $500 to $800, they wouldn't come back at $5, I wouldn't think. That's the problem,
Correct.
with making it more than 1 year. Anyway,
Just leave it at three. Just leave it at the 3 year. We got a 3 year deal, and then like you said,
Yeah.
then because things increase.
yeah, yeah, things change.
Yeah.
And if I may, just the way we've been doing most licenses, they've been going for the term of council. So the next council coming in has the term to review, the option to review these and the price and the term at the beginning of the next term of council.
Yeah, that'll be the end of this term then, for sure. Okay. You did the resolution, Mallory, so now we need the mover and seconder. Carm and Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Lands of Smith, deeming bylaw.
Yeah, so this is an application for a deeming bylaw. The Smiths own 2 adjacent lots on Halliburton Lake and just would like to merge them into one lot for development purposes. And this will merge them on title. So staff have no concerns and recommend approval of the bylaw.
Okay. I guess Barry, that's in your area. Is there any discussion on this? Mallory, go ahead.
Okay. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-43, which is a bylaw to deem lots 5 and 6, registered plan 395 in the geographic township of Harborne, not to be within a plan of subdivision for the purpose of section 53 of the Planning Act, as amended, be read a first, second, third time, passed, signed, the corporate seal attached thereto. This bylaw is intended to allow lot 5, plan 395 to merge on title with lot 6, plan 395, so that they can be used as one lot for development purposes.
Okay, mover and seconder, Barry and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, now, public announcement.
Yeah, this last item is just a good news story where we're trying to get the word out regarding new planning policies that recently came into effect. So some of the highlights of the changes to the planning policies include the permission for additional dwelling units, which are second dwellings on a property. Tiny homes are now permitted in the rural areas, and outdoor saunas are now permitted. Staff have shared this information on the municipality's social media platform and website, just in hopes of bringing awareness to these new policies, which are designed to create more housing within the community. Any questions that the public may have related to these new policies can be directed to the Planning and Land Information Department. And again, it's just like you said, a public announcement. And unless you have any questions, that ends the presentation.
Okay, so where's that going on the website? And are you doing a newspaper ad with that or what?
We haven't done a newspaper ad. It has been placed on the municipality's Facebook page, and it has been placed on the front page of the website. So it's just the poster you see attached to the agenda that gives a quick outline of some of the rules associated with tiny homes and additional dwelling units. just to try and make people aware of it. So if they have any questions and are interested in putting a second dwelling unit on their property, they can give us a call.
Okay, Pat?
Jeff, is that something that's been run in the local papers yet?
Well, it hasn't been, and that's why I'm wanted to bring it today. I'm hoping the press is still watching, even though planning's at the end of the day, and that they see this and maybe run a news story on this, because we really do need the housing. And these second units are permitted on most properties. They're not permitted in the waterfront, and you must be on a public road. They do require building permits, but you do not require planning approvals to move forward with those. So it's a good news story, and hopefully just this discussion gets picked up by the paper.
And hopefully the papers will pick this discussion up and do a story on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so resolution on that.
Okay, be it resolved that council receive the report related to recent changes to the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Mover and seconder, Barry, Pat, all in favor? Carried. Okay, Harcourt Community Hall.
They haven't had a meeting yet, but the last meeting that was over there was about the playground, and I think all of it's going forward, and I think it starts next month.
Oh, okay, good, that's positive.
Mhm.
West Guilford, anything?
Murray, we have a meeting next week, but all the painting upstairs got finished and the place looks great compared to what we used to.
Yeah, it's funny how it kept freshening it up, isn't it?
You didn't realize how bad it was till it's.
Oh, okay.
it's
I mean, while I was there last fall, but it wasn't bad then. Okay. Rails End, Nancy?
They're still getting ready. They've got 100 artisans to come for the Art and Craft Festival. It's in July 26th, 27th, 28th. They also secured a spot on an updated Ride in the Highlands map. It's a website for kind of motorcycle enthusiasts. So hopefully that will bring lots of people into the gallery. They are part of the Halliburton Sculpture exhibition this year. They're going to have a lovely sculpture on their patio. So it'd be nice for everybody to have a look at that. Their gift shop is full of stuff. If anyone needs some really nice Mother's Day gifts, it's a great place to go and have a look and do some shopping locally.
Good. Okay, have a resolution in, Mallory?
Yeah, be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the April 2024 Rails End Gallery and Art Center report.
Mover and seconder, Nancy and Walt, all in favor? Carried. BIA, Pat?
Murray had a personal emergency the last meeting, but sent an email out to everybody, but there's been a turnover in some of the people on the board there. And
Okay.
which is all positive on that note, so I'll have something to bring back definitely next meeting.
Fair enough. Okay, Mallory, resolution.
Be it resolved that be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the minutes from the January 25th, 2024 downtown Halliburton BIA Board of Management meeting as information.
Okay, mover and seconder. Pat and Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Harvest Halliburton. Nothing there, right?
Nothing to report, Murray.
That's a good committee to get on, Pat. Source water protection, Walt,
I'm gonna be at a meeting this Thursday.
Thursday. Okay. Upper Trent, Barry?
No meetings lately, other than, I know they're glad to see all this rain.
Yeah, they definitely need a lot of rain. Okay. Draft Glebe Park and Museum Committee meetings, which we saw, didn't we, today? Okay.
You want me to read the resolution for the minutes, Murray?
Sure.
Okay. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the draft minutes from the March 21st, 2024 Glebe Park and Museum Committee as information.
Okay, just for information, mover and seconder, Barry and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Okay, Draft Cultural Resources Committee meeting.
You want me to read that resolution as well?
Yes.
Okay, be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the draft minutes from the April 11th, 2024 Cultural Resources Committee as information.
Okay, mover and seconder. Carm and Nancy, all in favor? Carried. Any notices of motion for the next meeting? Okay, confirming bylaw.
Okay. Be resolved that bylaw number 2024-45, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held on April 23rd, 2024. Be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Mover and seconder. Barry and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay, adjournment.
Okay, be it resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting held on April 23rd, 2024 at 12:16 PM.
Mover and seconder. Tammy and Barry, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.